Chapter 6:13. When the light in the operating room went out, the doctor who had been resuscitated for a few hours walked out tiredly. Lon Kai, who had been waiting in front of the ward, walked up and grabbed the doctor's arm. "Doctor? We tried our best." The doctor shook his head, but the situation is not optimistic. The patient lost too much blood a few days ago. Now, you have to save her no matter what. "Mr. Lon, I understand your feelings," the doctor said helplessly. "How about this, send her to a separate ward first. We will find someone to guard her 24 hours a day. If there is a situation, we will deal with it immediately." Lon Kai finally let go of the doctor's arm. "President Lon?" The doctor didn't know what Lon Kai meant, so he could only ask hesitantly. "Why aren't you going?" Lon Kai suddenly waved his hand and roared like a lion. The leader of the Lon group had a domineering aura, which was more deadly than the dead people the doctor had seen. Yes, right away." The doctor left in a hurry. Seeing this, New Moon extended her hands from behind and grabbed Lon Kai's hands. She slowly pulled down the stiff arms in the air. "I want to be alone." Lon Kai shook his head and pulled his hands out of New Moon's hands and turned around. He untied his tie and threw it on the ground. He took off his suit jacket and threw it on the ground. His back gradually disappeared. The tower in Zhongguan City was opened recently. The appearance of this tower meant that the game opened the marriage function between players. Many players had already married. However, the players who planned to register today couldn't use the church at the highest venue because the guards said that it had been booked. Who would be so curious as to book the entire place? Most of the players did not intend to spend so much money to create such a virtual thing in such a game. According to practicality, after completing the registration, they were already legal husband and wife in the game. What was so good about a wedding? It was just another meaningless and wasteful formalism, the view of most men. The other view was simpler and more violent, go to hell, the view of most women. But no matter what other people's view was, she was already here. She, thousand delicate feathers, was already here. Waiting. Leaning against the stone window on the top floor of the tower, she looked at the sun climbing toward the west and waited quietly. In his impression, this was the third time Qian Xiu came to this place. The first 2 times, he could always get a deep sleep on this small bridge surrounded by water vapor. Perhaps this time, under the influence of alcohol, he could achieve the same result, right? That was what he hoped. He hoped that after he slept, the day would be over. But I didn't encounter the fishing mage today. That's good, because Qian Xiu didn't know how to answer the island monkey's question. Even if he was the one who came up with this problem. Half of the bottle of liquor had been drunk on the road. Qian Xiu grabbed the bottle and shook it. No matter how it was shaken, the bottle outside did not change. So what if he regained the ability to move? The past was still there. Lon, CEO Lon. The nurse who had just wiped Lon Xiu's body in the sanatorium's ward pushed the door open and walked out. She saw Lon Kai standing in front of the door silently. His appearance even made her feel terrified. She didn't know how to describe this young entrepreneur's appearance at this moment. She only felt that at this moment, he seemed to be no different from an ordinary person. Lon Kai squinted his eyes slightly and glanced at the nurse. The nurse's heart skipped a beat. She only felt that the other party was an ordinary person. It was like a fantasy. So she lowered her head and quickly left with the plate in front of Lon Kai. She walked in 3 steps, but she kept looking back. Lon Kai stood in front of the door of the room, motionless, but he kept looking at her. The nurse was even more scared. She finally stopped looking back and changed to running. She ran away from Lon Kai's sight. Lon Kai finally walked into the room, closed the door of the room directly, locked it, and came to the bedside. He looked at Lon Xiu on the hospital bed, pulled out a chair, and sat down. He just looked at this brother who was related to him by blood. After a long time, Lon Kai suddenly smiled. It was like a natural reaction of nerve. This action also lasted for a long time. His eyes were always fixed on Lan Xiu's face. Finally, he spoke. Do you know? Xiao Rou is lying in the hospital now. Her life is uncertain. You have harmed her again. His voice was quiet, as if he was talking about a simple matter. Lan Kai tilted his head and looked at Lan Xiu's face from another angle. I remember that when father brought you back that day, Xinyue was teaching Xiao Rou to play the piano, and I was reading next to her. Then you came. Lan Kai rubbed his fingers and thought for a while. How should I say it? When I first saw you, you were clean and shy. I felt like you and I were from two different worlds. Yes, we were indeed from two different worlds. There is no doubt that the impact you brought to us is very big. A person I have never met suddenly became your relative. I think you can't accept it all of a sudden, right? But I know that whether it's me or you, there's nothing we can do about such a fate. If you want to blame someone, you can only blame you and my father for not controlling yourself. By the way, do you remember the summer when you first came, the three of us went to the group's resort together? Forget it, let's not talk about it. There's nothing to talk about now. How can I not remember? Qian Xiu lay on the wooden board of the small bridge. Jade Fantasy's dusk was still orange-red today. Since he walked into this world, he had never encountered rainy weather. Holding the wine bottle, Qian Xiu closed his eyes and poured out his dreamlike words to himself. How can I not remember that it rained that day, and the original plan was cancelled? Later, Xiao Rou cried. You really had no choice, so you let us to sneak out under the driver's nose. We had fun for a day and we were happy, but the result was that you were scolded by Dad. You were also fined a month's pocket money, and you even caught a cold. Qian Xiu smiled. When he opened his eyes again, the orange-red sky dimmed a little. In my impression at that time, you were a person who followed the rules. You were so impulsive that time, which really surprised me. Later, I understood that it was because you really doted on Xiao Rou. How should I say it? I think I should be a little jealous. Well, it's jealousy. I know you are jealous. Lan Kai still looked at Lan Xiu, turned his head again, and looked at his blood brother from another angle. It's just jealousy. There is no basis, but I just feel it. As I said, from the beginning, I knew that we were people from two different worlds. But you are like a ferocious and sharp sword, piercing into our world from another world. You have disturbed our peaceful and stable life. Lan Kai shook his head. I am really just a person who follows the rules, and I am willing to be such a person. What's wrong with that? He stared at Lan Xiu, and his eyes gradually sharpened. You tell me, what's wrong with that? But you have impacted our lives again and again. In this family, you rely on our father's blame for you and do whatever you want, just like a devil incarnate. Skipping classes, fighting, smoking, causing trouble all day long, and committing all kinds of crimes. Because of you, our father, who is busy with work, rarely comes home for a meal. More than half of the time is spent educating you, and you are always cheeky. Lan Kai breathed out and laughed. But I just don't understand. You have never done these things in the name of the Lan family's young master. I thought your jealousy came from your childhood, but I finally understand that it is something else. Yes, I understand. Xiao Rou secretly told me, and then I understood. She said that one night, she saw you being punished by your father and not being allowed to finish your meal. You stood outside the house all night. That time, she saw you secretly take some sweet potatoes out of the kitchen and roast them with leaves in the yard. As you ate, you cried. As you cried, you ate, looking like a stray puppy. This is what Xiao Rou described. I have never compared people to stray dogs. In my opinion, you are a devil. The sun set. The gate of the tower was still motionless. She leaned against the window and watched the gradually leaving sunlight. She stared at it and whispered to herself, I don't know whether you have a good relationship or not. Sometimes I don't understand, I really don't understand. In fact, I didn't want to learn piano from Sister Xinyue. I just wanted to watch cartoons, but you didn't allow it, and neither did my father. Xiaoro smiled slightly. You know what? That was the first time I wandered outside the room so late at night. Curiosity drove me out of the room, and the first time I didn't go to bed at the prescribed time. My heart was pounding, scared and excited. I held the plush doll you gave me, walked all the way down the stairs, and quietly opened the door. That night I ate such delicious roasted sweet potatoes for the first time. I didn't know that the leaves in our yard could roast such delicious sweet potatoes. Why? Xiaoro shook her head. Finally, the last bit of sunlight converged from the horizon. She said softly, Maybe it's because I snatched it from second brother. If it were you, you would only give it to me, right? He is really different. He is really different from us. You often say that he is a devil or a devil. Have you ever seen a devil get so unlucky? He is not allowed to finish his meal. He is punished to stand outside in the cold, shivering from the cold. That night, second brother told me that he didn't want to come to us. I know you all think I am a devil. You are like this. The workers in your family are like this too. Qian Xiu stood up suddenly, pointed at the sky and scolded crazily. So what if I am a devil? Am I ruining your lives? Aren't you ruining my life too? What are brothers and sisters? I don't have any. I have only one since I was a child. What are you competing for? What are you competing for? Are you too like the prince and princess in the fairy tale? Why do you have such a good relationship? Why does that man throw me into your family after changing my life? He slammed the bottle on the wooden board, smashed it into pieces, and then knelt down. I don't belong to your world. No matter how hard I try, I can't belong to your world. You are like a knight, guarding your own territory, unbreakable. Ha 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 ha. Qian Xiu took out another bottle of wine, raised his head and poured it, letting the liquid wash his face. I know you are lonely. Lan Kai stood up from the chair and pointed at Lan Xiu with a trembling finger. Your jealousy, your naughtiness, your inferiority, everything stems from your loneliness. Lan Xiu, I tell you, I know it all. I know all of it. But this can't be the reason for you to hurt this family like this. This can't be the reason for your union. His anger even distorted his face. He suddenly grabbed the collar of the unconscious Lan Xiu and pulled Lan Xiu's body up. It doesn't matter if you want to take revenge or destroy it, even if you have 1,000 reasons. But you can't use love. You actually fell in love with your sister, your biological sister. Reason? I don't know the reason. How would I know the reason? I really don't know what the reason is. No one can give me a reason, not even myself. Qian Xiu stood up shakily and held the wooden stake next to him. Yes, there is no reason to wash away any trace of my sin. My life belongs to me. Why do you all use so-called reasons? Don't tell me that if there's no reason, I can't walk down the path I like? Xiaoro had sad tears on her face. Who defined morality in the beginning? Why do I define Lan Xiaoro with this definition? Before Lan Xiaoro, where was the real Lan Xiaoro? What is blood? Lan Xiaoro can't choose her own blood. Can't she even choose the person she loves? Just because of this Lan family's body? I'd rather not. Wake up! Wake up if you have the ability! Lan Kai violently slapped Lan Xiu's face and broke his lips, causing blood to overflow from the sleeping man's mouth. Wake up if you have the ability! You dared to elope with Xiaoro. You could have angered father to death. You could even regret it and have the courage to commit suicide. Why don't you wake up now? You just lie here and don't care about anything. Who do you think you are? Why did you have the courage to elope and not really take Xiaoro away? Take her away. Take her away. Take her away. Why do you keep her? You must hate second brother, right? If you say that you want to kill second brother with your own hands, I will believe it without reservation. Because I have always trusted you. Big brother, you have known about second brother and me for a long time, but you have been hiding it, right? Thank you. I also want to make mistakes again and again. I really want to. I want to continue being wrong all the time. Qian Xiu grabbed his hair in pain, and his head hit the wooden board of the wooden bridge vigorously. I think every minute and every second. I can't do it. Dad looked at me with desperate eyes before he fell. Xiao cried silently when she hugged Dad's body. I really can't do it. I hesitated. I was afraid. My courage was completely shattered like glass. Why do I exist? Tell me. Tell me, all of you. Why do I survive? Punishment? I accept it. I accept it all. I even came to this world. Since we are not from the same world, then I will disappear from your world completely. Disappear forever, but why can't I? She is here too. Qian Xiu's fingers poked his chest fiercely. For a sinful person like me, she is here too. She is here. Lan Kai. You bastard. Why can't you take care of her? Don't you know Xiao's character? She is here. She is here. If Xiao can't wake up, I will throw you out directly. Whether you are swallowed by a stray dog, or run over by a passing car, or anything else, you will be left to fend for yourself. Lan Kai sat on the floor weakly. He leaned against the edge of the hospital bed. I only have one sister left. Why do you want to hurt her like this? You are a devil. But I still hate you. Lan Kai, I hate you all my life. I want you to be miserable. Why don't you let me go with second brother? Why did you bring Dad here? She was like a screaming soul. She began to destroy everything in the church on the top floor of the tower frantically. Give me back my child. Give him back to me. You and Sister Xinyue really love each other, right? Okay. I also want you to understand the pain of not being able to be together. As long as I am here, I can make her go out crying if she dares to walk into this door. Lan Kai. I hate you. She knelt on the ground, covered her face and cried bitterly, Big brother, why do you always spoil me like this? She lay in the ruined auditorium, grabbed her clothes and said weakly, Lan Tian, why haven't you come to me yet? When Xinyue opened the door of this room, it was dark. She had to turn on the light. Looking at Lan Kai, who was sitting in the corner dejectedly, she also saw Lan Xiu, who had fallen to the ground. Xinyue was taken aback. She subconsciously covered her mouth and rushed to Lan Kai's side. Lan Kai, the driver told you to come here. Lan Xiu, Lan Kai looked up blankly. Xinyue, do you know that I wanted to kill him just now? Lan Kai, I choked his neck with all my might. Very, very hard. Lan Kai knelt up and grabbed Xinyue's palm with both hands. I told myself that it will be over soon. This nightmare will be over soon, it will be over. Lan Kai. Xinyue sighed, hugged Lan Kai's head and combed his hair. You can't do it in the end, right? I have already made sure that Xiao Rou and Lan Xiu's child can't come to this world. After Lan Xiu committed suicide, I sent him away and told Xiao Rou that he escaped. I thought that Xiao Rou would give up like this. I thought that everything could return to the past, peaceful, but no, I created a nightmare, a longer nightmare. Xinyue, tell me, what else can I do? What else can I do? I don't have any family anymore. He only had this embrace now. Chapter 6:14. Lan Kai gradually calmed down. As the helmsman of a large enterprise, if he did not have a strong will, he would not have survived until today under the sudden death of the previous helmsman. Xinu, will you marry me? I won't accept your proposal like this. Xinu still hugged Lan Kai. Her fingers gently rubbed his skin in his hair. Whether it is the venue or the atmosphere, it shows that you have no sincerity at all. That's right. Lan Kai laughed at himself. I'm fine. Xinu let go of him. Because of trust, she let go of Lan Kai. Then, she walked behind Lan Xiu and reached out to help him up from the ground. She seemed to be struggling. Lan Kai looked at her and said subconsciously, This guy doesn't feel anything at all. Why does he care? In the end, Xinu put Lan Xiu's hand on her shoulder and propped up their bodies. She looked up at Lan Kai and said, Even if he is just a stranger, you can't just leave him in the lurch, right? I grew up with you. Am I not the same with Lan Xiao? You always do unnecessary things. Lan Kai frowned, walked to Xianyu's side and helped her. The two worked together to help Lan Xiao back to the bed. He did not know if he felt more sorry for Xianyu, or as she said, even if he was a stranger, he could not just leave him in the lurch. Not to mention Lan Xiao, Lan Kai said sadly, go back to the hospital. I should be by Xiao Rou's side at this time. I will accompany you. Suddenly, Qian Xiu missed the small wizard who could persevere in fishing in this place. Maybe it was human nature. When a person was alone, he always longed for some voice to appear around him. It did not necessarily need to be a voice talking to him. The focus did not necessarily need to be on him. What he needed might be another person's soliloquy or a conversation between two other people. Golden Carp King, is there really such a thing? Probably it was an instinctive mechanism of self-protection after extreme pain. The brain circuit automatically switched to some irrelevant questions to achieve the effect of diverting attention. The body followed the thoughts of the brain at this moment and moved according to the instructions of the brain, thus achieving the effect of escaping again. He forcefully opened his hazy eyes. When the alcohol in his body had accumulated to an extremely high level, it seemed that his thinking speed had been infinitely slowed down. Qian Xiu squatted on the edge of the small bridge and looked at the lake below. In the end, he simply sank into the lake. The cold lake water instantly covered the bright starlight of the night sky of jade fantasy. The coolness entered through the nose, sealing off all possibilities of breathing. While his body was burning, he did not seem to feel the true coldness of the lake water. Instead, it felt cool, as if it had opened up a passageway between the hot and the cold for him. He seemed to have forgotten his own death toll, and his frozen thoughts prevented him from remembering anything. In this state of weightlessness, Qian Xiu had an extremely soothing feeling in his body and heart. If that was the case, would he be able to erase all traces of himself? If that was the case, Zhongguan City's bell suddenly rang. On the top floor of the tower, the damaged and messy auditorium had been restored to its original appearance a long time ago. The pastor stationed here was holding his chin with his hand and dozing off on the podium at the front of the auditorium. But the bell rang 10 times still woke him up. The pastor seemed to be shocked. He opened his old eyes and glanced at the night outside. Then, he glanced at the woman who had booked the entire auditorium. She was sitting on a bench below with her hands together and praying to the statue behind the pastor. The bell rang again and again. When it rang 10 times, it stopped. While praying, she suddenly opened her eyes at this time and looked at the pastor. She seemed to be uncertain, so she asked, "Pastor, what time is it?" "It's already 10 o'clock, Miss Thousand Delicate Feathers." "Isn't it only 9 o'clock?" She stood up, walked directly to the podium, and looked up. "I only heard the bell ring 9 times. It's indeed 10 o'clock. The pastor said with certainty. In addition, Miss Thousand Delicate Feathers, regarding the damage you caused to the auditorium, I hope you can give a corresponding compensation after the booking time is over. You're just an NPC designed by someone else. If it weren't for the fact that we can't fight here, believe it or not, I would kill you." The pastor closed his eyes. "You'll be punished if you attack a clergyman. Miss Thousand Delicate Feathers, you have to think carefully." Looking at the pastor's indifferent attitude, her hostility suddenly decreased by a lot. Then, she turned her back to the pastor, leaned against the podium, and sat down. She hugged her knees and suddenly asked, "Do you really believe in God, Pastor?" The pastor said, "Science can't prove that something doesn't exist." Xiao Rou was stunned. "You, a clergyman, still believe in the existence of science?" The pastor said, "After crossing the frozen valley and reaching the Gelda prairie, you can see the kingdom of the goblins. They are a race that is good at using science to create things." Xiao Rou shook her head. "That's right. I forgot that the world setting of this game is both science and theology. Forget it, just pretend I didn't ask you. Then, what do you think of ethics? The pastor said. Definition 1. Ethics is a discipline that discusses what is good and what is bad, and discusses moral responsibility and obligation. Definition 2. Ethics is a series of concepts that guide behavior. It is a philosophical thinking of moral phenomena from a conceptual point of view. It not only includes the behavior rules for dealing with the relationship between people and society, and between people and nature, but also deeply contains the profound principle of regulating behavior according to certain principles. Definition 3. Ethics is... Stop! Xiao Rou slammed the podium behind her, making a banging sound. Don't say it! I don't want to hear this kind of information. Sure enough, it's all in white. She couldn't help but laugh at herself. She actually asked a bunch of data designed by a programmer. The pastor suddenly said, when the great God created the first human, ethics didn't exist. The first human ate raw meat and ate blood, walking according to instinct, no different from beasts. Later, the God gave the first human a standard of ethics, and humans gradually had order. Until now, this world has become so prosperous. That is to say, ethics is necessary, right? She raised her head, but couldn't see the pastor's appearance. She could only see the mural on the ceiling of the auditorium on the podium. The pastor said, Needed. Needed. Xiao sneered. Then, if the order of humanity is broken and the world becomes chaotic again, or if the current ethics are no longer suitable for the development of the world, can it be overthrown and abandoned, and then a new ethics and order can be created? No longer limited to the so-called etiquette, the current morality, and the established relationship between people? She had already stood up, and her gaze was like a sharp sword piercing the pastor's body, but she saw that the pastor stood motionless in the same place. Even his expression seemed to be frozen. She only felt a burst of disappointment. How could these simple data be able to answer this kind of question? Probably to be able to answer needed. It already showed that the programmer was very conscientious. No one could give her an answer. The moment the 11th bell rang in the evening, Xiao Rou silently looked at everything outside the tower. Why did it become so quiet? 11:15. 11:15, 30 seconds to go. Xiao Rou suddenly took a deep breath, turned around, walked to the pastor, and said with a smile, Pastor, prepare for the ceremony. The pastor said, Miss Thousand Delicate Feathers, one person can't hold the ceremony. Xiao Rou smiled and said, No, it's 2 people. There will be 2 people soon. The pastor asked curiously, Why are you so sure? Because, no matter when, as long as we have an agreement. Xiao Rou shed tears and said, He will definitely arrive half an hour earlier. It will always be like this. At 11:15, the door of the auditorium suddenly opened with a bang. Qian Xiu, who was wet and panting, looked extremely embarrassed, still grabbed the handle of the door lock with both hands and stared angrily. Her body trembled slightly, and there was no longer the firmness she had a few seconds ago. It was as if all her strength had been drained. She turned around instantly with fear and uneasiness, stood in front of the podium, and looked across the long red carpet. Are you sick? Why do you have to pick such a high place? The stairs are spiral. Qian Xiu gasped for a few breaths, strode, and walked quickly to Xiao Rou. I knew you would come back. If I didn't come, after 12 o'clock, you wouldn't even stay in this world. You would just find a place to end your life, right? She nodded with a sad and beautiful face. Does this kind of blackmail make sense? If you don't care about me anymore, does it still make sense to you? Lan Xiu suddenly held Xiao Rou's face and stopped talking. She let it be and didn't say anything. Her gaze was as sharp as a needle and as sharp as a wheat. Time passed little by little, and it was 11:15. Then it was the last 10 minutes of the day. 9 minutes, 8 minutes, 7 minutes, After the 12th bell that represented the arrival of midnight rang, Qian Xiu took a deep breath. Do you know what it means to come here? And you can't be willful anymore. You can't enjoy a good life. You will suffer and even face more dangers. You even have to starve. I put in all my pocket money. 23 million worth of diamonds should last for a long time. Don't worry. I'm not afraid. Why are you always so willful? Qian Xiu rubbed his forehead. You have to hand it in. Don't go and buy things again. Don't buy things indiscriminately. I know. Even if you can't see Lan Kai again? You know what? I can't let go of all this. Big Brother can't let it go either. Thousand Delicate Feathers lowered her head and leaned on Qian Xiu's chest. He has suffered too much. He has always suffered too much. He can only be free when I'm gone. If you hadn't been missing, I wouldn't have been able to hold on until now. Lan Kai is too responsible. He has been the eldest son of the Lan family for 30 years, but he has never been himself. He has never been free. This is not the reason why we can do this. Qian Xiu shook his head. Thousand Delicate Feathers raised her head and looked at the face that she had been waiting for a long time in horror. Her body trembled. He grabbed her palm forcefully and looked at the pastor on the podium. Because under Thousand Delicate Feathers' instructions, the pastor who had started the ceremony did not stop. The pastor, who had already finished reciting the lengthy lines, had stopped at this time. He repeatedly said, Mr. Qian Xiu, are you willing to marry Miss Thousand Delicate Feathers as your wife? I am willing. Qian Xiu gave an answer with certainty. Thousand Delicate Feathers' body trembled even more. Finally, she heard such a sentence. Miss Thousand Delicate Feathers, are you willing to marry Mr. Qian Xiu? I am willing, she said loudly. I am willing. I am willing. The pastor nodded, closed the scripture on the podium with both hands, and then spread them out. Above the auditorium, 2 rays of light were flashing and turned into a light cluster. They slowly landed in front of Qian Xiu and Thousand Delicate Feathers, and then turned into 2 rings. The pastor said loudly, Then I, the Father, declare you. But the pastor's words were suddenly interrupted by Qian Xiu. No. We don't need any blessings. We only marry in the name of sinners. I declare that you are officially husband and wife. Please exchange rings. The pastor smiled slightly. Qian Xiu silently picked up the ring and put it on Thousand Delicate Feathers' finger. In the name of sinners, we will not get happiness. She also silently picked up the ring and put it on Qian Xiu's finger. In the name of sinners, even if we can't get happiness, we will be together forever. There will be nothing that can separate us. We are accomplices. We are already accomplices from the beginning. In the auditorium where no one watched the ceremony, the pastor who proved it was just a fictional thing. He even needed to come to a completely unfamiliar world and give up being a human. He kissed her here. The forbidden flower under existing human relations bloomed. Jean gulped. Milk God! Milk! Where are you? Xiao Bao, I'm coming. I'm coming. I'm coming. Muscle Khanna sighed. I finally understand why you are called the god of cheating. Sure enough, after forming a team once, you don't have to go back and form a team again. Xiao Bao, don't be like this. I also have a long-term partner, okay? Green Sukumizu curiously said, Damn? Is there anyone who is more cheating than you? Xiao Bao, it's quite cheating. I never use voice. I only know how to type. You don't know how tired I am. It's still cool to type while using voice. My hands are free. But I say, although this aspect is worth complaining about, my boss is definitely not cheating. If it's like this dungeon instance, I think these 2 bosses can defeat it directly. Jean gulped and said, Who is so awesome? Do you know him? Xiao Bao laughed and said, Probably not for the time being. He went on a honeymoon, although it's only in the game. TSK. Pay attention to the milk. Okay. I'm coming. I'm coming. Wait. I'll go away for a while. Damn. He's coming again. Kick this cheating guy out of the team. Xiao Bao could no longer see that his character had been kicked out of the team. He just held a pile of information and hurriedly ran outside the corridor of the office. TSK, do I have to tell you that the two bosses in my family are the legendary tycoons in the game world? What are you laughing at? Thousand Delicate Feathers poked her head out from under Qian Xiu's arm and asked curiously. Xiao Bao's email. Qian Xiu smiled. Another team was cheated by him. Thousand Delicate Feathers thought for a while and said, in fact, your underling is pretty good. Those people don't know what's good for them, right? Where are we going next? Are we going to explore the new area as planned? Qian Xiu suddenly said, before that, I want to go to a place first. Where? Novice Village. Wow, there is such a good place. Why didn't I know about it? On the small bridge by the lake, Thousand Delicate Feathers stretched, but Qian Xiu quietly looked at the entrance in front of the bridge and didn't speak much. Thousand Delicate Feathers didn't mind. She just looked at Qian Xiu's side face silently. After waiting for a long time, a young man dressed as a sorcerer walked slowly at the bridgehead, holding a fishing rod in one hand and a basket in the other. Are we waiting for this person? Why is he only level 4? Thousand Delicate Feathers blinked and seemed to find it incredible. Qian Xiu sighed and said, he has been level 4 since I met him. He never does anything. He just comes here to fish when he has time. The legendary Golden Carp King's mission. Thousand Delicate Feathers widened her eyes. The one that is said to be impossible to complete? Qian Xiu nodded. Thousand Delicate Feathers shook her head. I don't know if this guy is lucky or unlucky. Finally, Little Sorcerer walked in front of the two and smiled slightly. There are 2 people this time? Qian Xiu nodded and smiled. I found the answer to the question about the isolated island monkey. Congratulations. Little Sorcerer LQ nodded. Qian Xiu suddenly said, don't you want to know the answer? Little Sorcerer shook his head, walked past the two, and came to the place where he always fished. He sat down and said casually, it's your answer, not mine. It's useless to me. Why is this person like this? Thousand Delicate Feathers asked softly in Qian Xiu's ear. Qian Xiu shook his head slightly, walked behind Little Sorcerer, and suddenly said, I saw it. Little Sorcerer turned to look at him. Qian Xiu said, Golden Carp King, I saw it. It's indeed under the bottom of this lake, probably in a cave in the middle. I know. Little Sorcerer smiled. Qian Xiu said in amazement, you know? Little Sorcerer said, because I tried to find someone to bring the bait down for me before. As a result, he was chased around by the Carp King and died many times. Later, I understood that I could only catch it with a fishing rod. Qian Xiu was stunned, then looked at Little Sorcerer LQ. After a long time, he suddenly laughed. Really? Is that so? It's always there. It's always there. It turns out to be like this. The willing ones take the bait. Little Sorcerer also smiled slightly. What are you talking about? Why can't I understand? Thousand Delicate Feathers was inserted between the two, looking back and forth. Then, like a frightened rabbit, she directly hugged Qian Xiu's arm and looked at Little Sorcerer with hostility. She also deliberately showed the ring on her hand. Of course, she did not think that Little Sorcerer would notice. She just did it like this. Qian Xiu just smiled slightly and said nothing. At this moment, Little Sorcerer suddenly put down the fishing rod in his hand and stood up. System prompt. Player LQ asks you to inherit the mission Golden Carp King's fishing. Do you want to inherit it? This was the voice that sounded in Qian Xiu's mind. He opened his eyes in amazement and moved his lips. Why? Just treat it as your wedding gift. Little Sorcerer smiled and said, although it is said that it is an impossible mission, I hope you don't mind. What about yourself? After working hard for so long you suddenly gave up. Isn't it a pity? Qian Xiu frowned. Me? Little Sorcerer shook his head. I'm just killing time. If I don't do this mission, there are actually a lot of things I can do. Qian Xiu thought for a while and nodded. Then I won't be polite. If I can fall, I will tell you. I'll wait for your good news. The little sorcerer left the two, walked out of the bridge, walked through the long mud used to dig earthworms, and then disappeared into the forest. Qian Xiu picked up the fishing rod on the ground and looked at it silently. Are you really going to do this mission? Thousand Delicate Feathers asked curiously. It's impossible to complete. Just treat it as atonement. Qian Xiu gave the answer softly, but after he saw Thousand Delicate Feathers' small movements, he couldn't help but frown. What do you want to do, by all-purpose bait in the mall as a substitute? Do you still want to catch earthworms? Thousand Delicate Feathers said, I really want to catch them with my hands. It's not pixels. It's a bad habit, brother. Qian Xiu knocked her head fiercely. I said, don't buy anything. Hospital, observation ward. Facing the mirror in front of him, Lan Kai quietly looked at Lan Xiao, who was lying inside as if she was asleep. Xinyue was next to him, folding paper cranes at this moment. Lan Kai suddenly sighed. Xinyue, do you think she has been unconscious since then, or is she having a dream of her own? I don't know. Xinyue shook her head. We can only think in a positive direction. No one knows the answer except for Xiao herself. With that said, Xinyue put the folded paper cranes on the table here. There were already a lot of paper cranes here. Lan Kai shook his head and said, the doctor said that she may not wake up in this life. She can't see after you do so much. Isn't it redundant? Xinyue said with a smile, you always say that I do redundant things. Is it interesting? Don't you always do some redundant things yourself? Lan Kai snorted coldly. I don't. Xinyue stood up straight and reached out to touch Lan Kai's lip. She sighed and said, the Lan Group is engaged in the production of large-scale equipment. This has nothing to do with the medical industry, right? But since you took over the company, why did you suddenly invest in the medical industry? You even cooperated with the hospital to open such a sanatorium? The company needs to transform. It can't die. Lan Kai shook his head and looked away. Your family is also a business family. Don't you understand this? I'm just a little woman. You really don't understand the principle of doing business. Xinyue knocked on Lan Kai's forehead. However, why do you want the hospital to focus on the nervous system, and even plan to cooperate with foreign countries on another neural prosthesis project? Who told you? Lan Kai frowned and said in a deep voice, is it literally? I will scold him later. His secretary doesn't behave like a secretary. Xinyue reached out and knocked on Lan Kai's forehead again. She reprimanded. It is because of your overbearing attitude that I am about to become your employee's visiting office, okay? Instead, they came to my piano classroom to complain and feel comfortable. They're disturbing me when I'm teaching my students. Lan Kai wanted to say something but stopped. Finally, he sighed and shook his head. Okay, I will be more careful in the future. Other than being more careful, is there nothing else? Xinyue's face was still tense. Lan Kai said helplessly, Okay. What else is there? Just say it. I will change, okay? Xinyue said softly, You're not that far off. You should let yourself go, right? Lan Kai's body trembled slightly. He looked at Lan Xiao in front of the bed, and reached out to the glass in front of him. If I didn't insist at that time, would they be living well in that corner of the world? I don't know. Xinyue shook her head. Lan Kai sighed. After Xiao's condition is completely stabilized, send her to the sanatorium. Really? Xinyue looked at Lan Kai in surprise. Lan Kai nodded silently. Don't let more tragedies happen. Lan Xiao is Lan Xiao's brother. He has to try it too. That's good. Lan Kai grabbed Xinyue's palm and said, By the way, shouldn't you consider marrying me? Xinyue pulled her hand out and stepped back with her hands behind her back. No. Why? Lan Kai asked, puzzled. Now that I think about it, You don't seem to have pursued me properly, right? You've wasted so many years of my innocence, and now you're asking me to marry you with just a casual sentence? How can there be such a good thing? Shinue opened the door and walked out as she spoke. Lan Kai immediately chased after her. Wait, who said I didn't pursue you? From junior high school to university, I have been pursuing you, okay? Shinue, let's go to the movies tonight? No want. Shinue, wait for me. No want. The wind blew the curtains open. In a room in a quiet sanatorium in the suburbs, a man and a woman were lying side by side on the bed. They were all very clean, because they had been well taken care of here. The club's servant girl was changing the vase in front of the window with fresh roses, while Boss Luo stood between the two beds. If the human order is broken and becomes chaotic again, or the existing ethics are no longer suitable for the development of the world, can it be overthrown and abandoned, and then create a new ethics and order? No longer limited to the so-called etiquette, the current morality, and the established relationship between people? The roses spread into a beautiful shape under Yu Ye's hands. Hearing this, the servant girl turned around at this time, only to see Luochu shaking his head. It's quite difficult, this proposition. But the servant girl said, well, there seems to be the so-called rule of heaven, earth, ruler, parents, and teacher in the ancient East. Now the ruler is gone, right? That will be a long time later. Luochu smiled, and then walked to the bedside table between the two beds, putting a small photo frame on the table. Then, I will return the things you left here to you two guests. In the room of the sanatorium, there were only him and her who were sleeping. The wind was still blowing the thin gauze in front of the window, and the roses on the vase were still swaying. In the photo, he and she were intimately hugging each other. Probably no one would think that they were a pair of lovers who loved each other so deeply. Yin. Chapter 6:15. Lizzie knocked on the door of Ren Xiling's office with a smile. At this time, Sub-editor Ren was looking at the screen of the notebook with a ballpoint pen hanging between her nose and upper lip. She was probably worried about writing the manuscript. I don't want to write any more. Lizzie, let's go out. But Sister Ren, the boss said that if you don't hand in the manuscript today, your labor will be deducted this month. Lizzie blinked her eyes. What are you doing here? Have you finished your work? Is this a place for slacking off? Sub-editor Rin suddenly turned on her acrimonious mode. Lizzie mysteriously took out a small box and shook it in front of Ren Xiling. What's this? Ren Xiling curiously asked. Medicine. Lizzie sat down. Didn't you say you wanted more during the Golden Week? So I asked someone to get some from my hometown. Ren Xiling shook her head. Oh, I remember. But isn't this medicine too strong? I'm a little scared when I think of old Ma's condition after he fell down. It's too bad for his body. Sister Ren, Lizzie said with a tired voice, now you know how to be distressed? Don't you want to have a grandson? Go away. Ren Xiling waved her hand. Lizzie smiled and said, don't worry, I asked the people in my hometown to reduce the efficacy of the medicine. He won't be like Officer Ma. Besides, Luochu is young, so he should be fine. Ren Xiling was suspicious. She blinked her eyes and looked at Lizzie's blinking appearance. She quickly took the small box from Lizzie's hand and stuffed it into the drawer. Then she continued to say acrimoniously, why are you still sitting here? Don't work. Get out. Lizzie was shocked by her ability to remove the board after crossing the bridge. She was amazed. By the way, there's a letter for you. A letter for me. Ren Xiling was stunned. She took the white envelope from Rico's hand. After a quick glance, she frowned. After a while, Ren Xiling suddenly took out her mobile phone and was about to dial Luochu's number. But after thinking for a while, she put down her mobile phone and tapped her fingers on the table. She suddenly said, Lizzie, go and print a leave form for me. I may need to take a few days off. Possible? Sister Ren, what happened? Lizzie asked curiously. Just do as I say. Why are you asking so many questions? Ren Xiling urged him with a wave of her hand. Today's harvest is quite rich. When they returned to the entrance of the club, Luocio lifted the shopping bag in his hand. For some reason, Boss Luo was always very fond of discount days in the supermarket. Of course, most of the things they bought were just ingredients and spices. Yes. At the same time, Yu Yi pushed open the 2 pine doors in front of the shop. But she found a black soul messenger was waiting in the lobby. Of course, it was not Taiyinzi. He was probably still enjoying Jade Fantasy. It was Black Soul number 18 who was waiting. Greetings to Master and Miss Yu Yi. The black-robed emissary greeted him with her ear-piercing voice that would give anyone goosebumps. Luocio nodded and walked to the counter. He rolled up his sleeves and packed up today's harvest. Number 18, what's the matter? Black Soul number 18 glanced at the critical door in the corner of the lobby and said, It's disrespectful to Master that I didn't come back. So I came back to pay my respects. Really? Luocio nodded with a smile. Have you been back for a long time? A while. Black Soul number 18 nodded. Sit down, don't stand. Luocio pointed to the front. What have you been busy with recently? I've been following up with a potential customer. Black Soul number 18 said quickly. I believe he will become a customer soon. Master, do you want to read the information first? Luocio shook his head. He cut a piece of fresh lemon and put it in his mouth. He frowned. Well, it's too sour. Number 18, do you like lemons? Master, it's okay if Black Soul doesn't eat. Number 18 shook her head. Luocio smiled and said, That's a lot less fun. You have to learn from Taiyinzi. He knows how to live well. Yes, yes. Black Soul number 18 was a little stunned and nodded. I heard that this newcomer has done well recently. Not bad. Master, I actually want to exchange something with you this time, Black Soul number 18 suddenly said. You can directly find Yu Yi. You don't have to report it to me. Luocio said casually. By the way, I'm going to cook today. Do you want to stay for a meal? Black Soul number 18 shook her head. I'll leave as soon as I finish the exchange. Well, next time. Luocio waved his hand. After Black Soul number 18 left, Miss Maid returned to her master. Master, number 18 asked for the information of an ancient Egyptian language that has disappeared. Luocio smiled faintly. As I said, you don't have to report it to me. Yu Yi said, Number 18 is a black soul with good performance, but she hasn't handed in the white card for a long time. Supervising and reminding black soul messengers was one of the duties of Miss Maid. She even had a very strict attitude in this aspect. She may have her own plans. Boss Luo smiled. No matter what, number 18 has existed longer than you and me. She should know it in her heart. Miss Maid nodded. Everything was in accordance with her master's wishes. She only supervised the work of Black Soul, but served her master here. Don't say this. Boss Luo waved his hand and put the salmon bought from the supermarket into a plate. I'll leave the rest to you. My knife skills are not as good as yours. Okay. All the lights in the apartment were turned on even in the daytime, but all the curtains were closed. An elderly foreign man was holding a document in his hand and pacing back and forth in the living room. His brows were furrowed as he thought about something. In the middle of the sofa, a young man was sitting. The young man's appearance was almost the same as the foreign old man. Of course, it was not because they had any blood relationship. The reason why they looked similar was that they were slovenly. Wang Yuechuan and Professor Cui Fo, who came from Australia to interpret the strange book in his hand. At this time, unlike Professor Cui Fo's frown, Wang Yuechuan stared intently at the coffee table in front of him. On this coffee table, a flat square of black cloth was spread. At this time, Wang Yuechuan took a deep breath and opened the small bottle next to him. It contained some white powder. These powders were ground from crystals that could be bought on the market. Wang Yuechuan poured the crystal powder on the bottle into his palm. Then, He clenched the powder and began to slide it from his fist little by little. On the black cloth on the coffee table, he used the powder to draw a strange pattern little by little. In the end, Wang Yuechuan even took a small knife and cut his finger. His expression became more focused. He squeezed his cut finger hard, and the red blood dripped on the black cloth drop by drop. Chapter 6:16. At this time, with Wang Yuechuan's voice, the crystal powder sprinkled on the black cloth gradually reacted. They quickly absorbed the blood dripping on it, and then turned into extremely fine particles. Then, they floated up one by one. These red particles began to float in front of Wang Yuechuan from the black cloth without any physical external force. They seemed to be attracted by something and gradually gathered in mid-air. The blood-stained red crystal powder accumulated in the air gradually grew, and a sandman-like shape gradually became clear. Wang Yuechuan's expression even changed from concentration to nervousness. He watched the shape of this thing without blinking. Finally, when the last powder also gathered together, the shape of this little person finally took shape. Wang Yuechuan's eyes flashed with joy, but it didn't last long. The floating crystal powder piled up in front of him dispersed in an instant. Like quicksand, it scattered directly on the black cloth of the coffee table. Wang Yuechuan frowned and kept staring at the coffee table in front of him in silence. Professor Trevor next to him stopped at this time and glanced at him. "Wang, you failed again." Wang Yuechuan shook his head and sat up. He seemed to be a little depressed. "I have done it according to the content you interpreted. I am sure that there is no mistake in any step, but there is still no way to complete this magic." Professor Trevor said, "This Book of the Dead is too mysterious, Wang. I am not sure whether my interpretation of the content is correct. Even the pronunciation of the spell is mostly guessed. It is not necessarily accurate. Besides, regarding the casting material, I think it is also a factor that must be paid attention to. After all, I still know too little." Wang Yuechuan shook his head. He stretched out his hand and opened the curtain behind the sofa a little. A beam of sunlight pierced in, and Wang Yuechuan frowned subconsciously. Only then did he remember that he hadn't left this apartment for a week. The last time he went out was to pick up the literature materials and buy food sent by Professor Trevor's students in Australia. His life suddenly changed dramatically since he met Professor Trevor at the airport that day. Deciphering the ancient and mysterious magic recorded in the Book of the Dead. While the supernatural power was impacting Wang Yuechuan's existing knowledge, it was also reshaping his understanding of the world. It was a pity that Professor Trevor's interpretation of the Book of the Dead was so slow that until now, he still couldn't complete the simplest magic recorded in the Book of the Dead. However, he no longer doubted the authenticity of the magic. Even if the magic could not be completed, the miraculous nature of the process was enough to prove its existence. After all, Professor Trevor had not started to interpret it for a long time, and this Book of the Dead was obtained from Chao Yu. Wang Yuechuan could not even guess how long it had been since Chao Yu had the book, but it was clear that Chao Yu knew more and could even use many of the spells recorded in the book. The question was, what was the real reason for Chao Yu's death when he was able to use such a miraculous magic? What was the reason for his terrified expression before he died? "Professor, is there any news from your side?" Wang Yuechuan looked at Professor Trevor at this time. "My students are already helping me find records that match the period when this Book of the Dead appeared, but I'm afraid it won't be so soon." Professor Trevor said helplessly, "Wang, you have to know that the truth buried in history is not something that can be found casually. As for you, as a public official in this country, is it really okay for you not to go to work? I've already informed them. You don't have to worry about this. Just interpret the content of the Book of the Dead properly," Wang Yuechuan said calmly and stood up. "I'm going to take a shower." But he extended his palm to Professor Trevor. Professor Trevor looked reluctant, but finally handed the Book of the Dead in his hand to Wang Yuechuan. "Wang, Didn't you just take a shower in the morning? Wang Yuechuan didn't answer. He walked into the bathroom with the Book of the Dead. He had been carrying the Book of the Dead with him. He could allow Trevor to hold the book under his nose, but he wouldn't let it really out of his sight. Professor Trevor narrowed his eyes until Wang Yuechuan had entered the bathroom. He glanced at the powder on the black cloth after Wang Yuechuan failed to use the magic, then he paced back and forth in the living room again with his hands behind his back. There was no doubt that his cognition was also greatly impacted like Wang Yuechuan's. He could interpret some of the knowledge in the book, but what he revealed to Wang Yuechuan was less than what he interpreted. At this time, Professor Trevor's laptop on the table suddenly rang. It was an email for him. The professor glanced at it curiously, then hurriedly ran to the bathroom and knocked on the door. Wang, my student said that he found someone who can decipher the text. The next moment, Wang Yuechuan, whose hair was wet, opened the door with a towel wrapped around his lower body. Where is it? It's in this country, and it's still in this city. Wang Yuechuan ignored Trevor's ecstatic look. His keen intuition made him feel that this matter wouldn't be as simple as a coincidence. Wait for me, I'll leave right away. Wang Yuechuan nodded and returned to the bathroom. When he walked out again, the stubble on his face had been cleaned. What made Luoqiu curious was that Renziling, who came back at night, didn't look like a defeated dog. She slumped on the sofa as soon as she took off her shoes, and then stretched out her hand like an evil feudal landlord. After Renziling slumped for a while, she suddenly said, "Kid, what did you leave for me tonight?" "Sashimi." "Oh." Renziling didn't rush to the table as usual. Instead, she reached out and pinched her shoulders. She suddenly looked at Boss Luo and said, "Kid, can you massage my shoulders?" So Boss Luo stood up and threw a small hammer used for massaging shoulders on Auntie Ren's stomach. Sub-editor Ren didn't sigh and lament with tears and snot as usual. Instead, she grabbed a small hammer and tapped it on her shoulder. She stared at the ceiling like this. No one knew what she was thinking. Luoqiu frowned. "What's the matter?" The small hammer in Renziling's hand stopped. She looked at Luoqiu and suddenly said, "Kid, do you want to go back to your hometown?" "Hometown?" Luoqiu sat down. Renziling also sat up straight. "Today, a letter from your hometown was sent to my office. It was your uncle who wrote the letter. He said that there is an old man at home who is dying. He asked if you want to go back and see him." Luoqiu was silent for a while. "Why is the letter sent to your office? And it's a letter?" Renziling shrugged. "They don't have your phone number. We don't live in the old house now. As for the letter, who should I ask? Anyway, I haven't changed my phone number. I don't believe that they don't know about it." Although she said so, Luoqiu naturally knew that Renziling knew about it by looking at her appearance. Since Renziling had a showdown with her relatives in her hometown 3 years ago, they hadn't contacted each other until now. If it weren't for the old man at home who was seriously ill, it would probably continue to be like this. "Who is it?" "Your uncle's mother." Renziling sighed and said, "I heard from your father that your grandparents passed away early. Your father was taken care of by this aunt since he was young. You can say that you have repaid her kindness. So, I think it's reasonable for you to go back to your hometown. I've already written the leave request form. When do you want to leave? Anyway, you're on leave now. There shouldn't be anything urgent, right?" Chapter 6:17. Wang Yuechuan and Professor Chui Fo rushed to an old bookstore. It was the type of bookstore that sold books downstairs while the owner lived upstairs. Professor Chui Fo was eager to try. He couldn't wait to walk into the bookstore immediately. It seemed that the old bookstore with the mark of time had infinitely increased the hormones in the old professor's body. Or, if ancient classics and the like could be found somewhere. Such an old store seemed to be very convincing. "Excuse me, is there anyone here?" Wang Yuechuan opened the door and walked into the bookstore before Professor Chui Fo. It was almost 10 o'clock in the evening. The bookstore was closed, but it was not locked. Only the dim light inside shone out. The rows of bookshelves in front of him were filled with all kinds of books. The smell of the books mixed with the smell of the damp air. Wang Yuechuan saw a woman in her 40s or 50s dozing off on the counter on the left. Wang Yuechuan glanced at Professor Cui Fo, then he tapped on the counter twice. He was suddenly awakened by the dozing middle-aged woman. She was a little frightened and seemed to look at the two people in front of her. "Don't be afraid. We are not bad people. Are you the lady boss here?" Wang Yuechuan said bluntly, "We are looking for a book." As Wang Yuechuan said, he took out a note. "Look at what is written on it. Is there such a person here?" "Oh, you mean that book?" The lady boss suddenly realized. "Are you looking for it? Lady boss, you know this book?" Wang Yuechuan asked seriously. The lady boss said very casually, "I don't know. This is what my son told me. He said that he saw someone posting something about looking for this book on the old book website." Wang Yuechuan hurriedly said, "Then your son is now," the lady boss said, He went to get the goods. Otherwise, I wouldn't still open the door now." "Oh, I remember. He found the book. Wait for a moment." Soon after, the lady boss took out a worn hardcover book from the cabinet behind her. "Look, is this the book?" Professor Cui Fo pulled it out directly, then he quickly flipped through a few pages anxiously. The speed of flipping increased, and he didn't speak. Wang Yuechuan frowned. "Is this the one?" Professor Cui Fo then said, "Yes, this is it." The professor who wrote the book was a famous linguist in the 18th century. But because of the war, many of his works could no longer be found. Even if it was this book, it should have been reprinted many years ago, and the print run should be very small. I was under the impression that there was an original copy of the first edition hidden in the British Library. I didn't expect to find a printed copy in China. Your Majesty, your country is truly a magical country. Wang Yuechuan and Professor Cui Fo communicated in English. The proprietress didn't seem to understand at all. She kept looking at the woman. At this time, Wang Yuechuan just quickly asked, "Then, is this book useful for your interpretation work?" Professor Cui Fo was overjoyed. "Yes. Of course there was. With it, I estimate that the deciphering speed will increase by at least 3 times. No, at least 5 times. Wang Yuechuan nodded and looked at the lady boss. "Lady boss, this book is what we're looking for. We'll buy it. Name a price." "How about 3,000? The proprietress suddenly said. Wang Yuechuan nodded without saying a word, and took out his bank card. But the proprietress suddenly said at this time, I remembered wrongly. My son didn't say this number. He said 5,000 yuan. Wang Yuechuan frowned, but he didn't stop. He just said indifferently, "I've thought about it. 5,000 is 5,000. Lady boss, you've really thought about it." The proprietress swallowed subconsciously. "Yes, I've thought about it. 5,000. Okay, I'll pay by card." Wang Yuechuan nodded. He deliberately used this kind of tone to test the boss's wife. But in the end, this was the typical face of a normal citizen. Maybe it was really just a coincidence. The Book of the Dead almost destroyed his previous cognition. Then, the next proposition came. If there were supernatural forces in the world, then was there such a saying? "Okay. Sign it." The proprietress said with joy, "Sir, do you want to leave your phone number? I still have a lot of old books here. It's a big deal for my son to find old books. Next month, I heard that there will be another batch of good goods next month. I'll introduce them to you when we arrive. Let's talk about it later." Wang Yuechuan signed, then took a business card of the bookstore directly from the counter. Then, he led Professor Trevor and left the bookstore quickly. "Take care." The proprietress sent the two out of the door and waved her hand enthusiastically until the two figures were completely out of sight. Then, she turned around, closed the door, and sat back on the counter. Her body lay directly on the table, and fell asleep directly. A wisp of black smoke quietly emerged from her body. The black smoke condensed in the air. Soon after, it rotated and turned into a black shadow. The black shadow floated quietly above the bookstore, looking at the direction where Wang Yuechuan and Professor Trevor disappeared. It whispered gloomily, "Hurry up and become a magician. I like magicians the most." The black shadow quickly disappeared, leaving behind only the faint, sharp, and ear-piercing laughter of the old witch. In the car, Professor Trevor couldn't wait to start reading the ancient book in the front passenger seat. Wang Yuechuan looked at his infatuated expression and remained silent. His phone rang at this moment. Wang Yuechuan glanced at it and answered after thinking for a while. This was a call from his superior, his direct superior in the provincial bureau. "Yuechuan, you haven't slept yet, have you?" Wang Yuechuan said. "Professor Zhao, what's the matter? You've been transferred there for almost 3 months, right? You haven't reported to me for a long time. Recently, I heard that you seem to have some problems, and you often don't come to the bureau over there, right?" Wang Yuechuan said directly. "This is the case, Professor Zhao. In fact, I've been planning to report to you recently, but there's a special situation here, so I haven't had time. Since you called directly, then I'll report it." "Okay, tell me, what's the situation?" "Professor Zhao, I've been investigating something recently, but there are no substantial clues at present." "What? Do you smell the smell of a big case again?" "Professor Zhao, about this, I can't say it now. But please believe me, okay?" There was silence on the other end of the phone for a while. "Yuechuan, I know you are a good comrade. You have always done things well. Well, I'll wait for you to give me a complete report. But Yuechuan, work still needs to be done. You still have to thoroughly investigate the matter that the Provincial Bureau asked you to investigate before." "Professor Zhao, I know. I'll do my job well." "Well, it's not early. You should rest early if you have nothing to do. When you come back, I'll ask my wife to make some crabs for you. By the way, there's still half a bottle of Moutai waiting for you at home." "Okay, it's a deal." "It's a deal. You're going back alone." Ren Xiling stood up suddenly and stared at Luochio with her eyes wide open. Then she sat down with her arms crossed and frowned. "I don't agree." "Don't worry, I'll be fine," Luochio said calmly. "You may cause trouble if you go there." "What do you mean by I may cause trouble?" Ren Xiling opened her eyes wide again, but when she saw Luochio looking at her, and looking at the peaceful smile on his face, her heart suddenly softened. "Well, you've grown up. But if there's anything and those people in your family want to find fault with you, tell me immediately. I'll beat them to death." "Didn't you already beat them up once, in the private room of the restaurant 3 years ago?" The way he looked when he threw away those contracts and the way he looked now was still the same. Luochio said softly, "You eat first." Yin 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 yin. Chapter 6:18. Luochio's hometown was not a place that could be reached by plane. When he was very young, he followed his parents back to their hometown to worship their ancestors. They took the bus from the airport and then the minibus in the town. But now the high-speed railway had been built here, but the minibus between the town and the town was still there. They set off in the early morning. When they got off the bus, it was already 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Although buying directly from the club could save them from the fatigue of the journey, Boss Luo still went there in the normal way. It was his cousin who came to pick up Luochio at the town's bus station. Because they had been living separately and rarely visited each other, Luochio had little impression of this cousin. He remembered that he should be born 3 years earlier than him, and his name was Luo Zheng. His uncle also had an eldest daughter, who should be about 35 years old. "Oh, speaking of which, we really haven't seen each other for several years. I remember the last time I saw you was 3 years ago, 4 years ago? At that time, you were not as tall as my shoulder. Now you are so big. Are you in college?" Luo Zheng was a capable young man who had some small wholesale business. The minibus that picked up Luochio this time was the tool he usually used to transport goods. He was quite enthusiastic, perhaps because they were both young people. A lot has changed here. Luoqiu looked at the road outside. Luo Zheng's speed was almost the same as Ren Xiling's. The wind that came in always smelled of soil and fertilizer. The country has developed here. Luo Zheng smiled, which was a smile of satisfaction with his current life. He was also one of the beneficiaries of the country's development. By the way, do you want to eat something? I have some spicy sticks, do you want to eat? Luo Zheng showed his big yellow teeth and became more enthusiastic. I just got off the bus. I don't want to eat now. Luoqiu shook his head. Luo Zheng was stunned and then said, Luoqiu, are you carsick? Do you want to take a break first? There's a small shop in front. I'll get you a bottle of water. Wait for me. With that said, Luo Zheng stopped the van and hurriedly ran into the small shop on the roadside. After a while, he came back with a box of mineral water. Luoqiu had no choice but to help open the van door. Wait, there are 3 more boxes. You bought so many at once? Luoqiu asked curiously. Luo Zheng chuckled and said, It's a discount. Since it's cheap, I bought more. It's also convenient to leave it for the workers to drink. I'll save as much as I can. Just wait, it'll be done soon. Let me help you. No need, no need. It's nothing. Luo Zheng was still smiling, looking a little silly. His curved eyes looked like the eyes of a guppy looking up from a clear river. Students are not used to this kind of rough work. I'm not that weak. Luoqiu only smiled. However, he was still polite. Regardless of whether it was Luo Zheng or him, he was still polite. This was probably how it felt when a distant relative returned. However, Boss Luo liked Luo Zheng's guppy-like eyes. After setting off again, Luo Zheng began to talk about some daily topic. Luoqiu had some general impression of the people in his hometown. This isn't the way to the hospital, right? Luoqiu looked at the road signs on the road and asked curiously. Luo Zheng sighed and said, The old lady didn't want to stay in the hospital. She said it was expensive. She argued and went home. In fact, it's really not that difficult. The policy has been passed. There's already public medical care. But she didn't believe it. She argued and had no choice but to come back. Wait, I need to answer the phone. Luoqiu nodded. Brother-in-law, I need to pick someone up. Well, you wait, I'll take a detour. Luo Zheng looked at Luoqiu after hanging up the phone. Brother, I'll take a detour. Who's the brother-in-law you just mentioned? Luoqiu suddenly asked. It's my sister's husband. Oh, it's normal that you don't remember because they divorced long ago. Luo Zheng said casually. Right, if you are tired, you can sleep for a while. There are pillows in the back seat. It's very comfortable. Well, I'll take a break. Luoqiu closed his eyes in the back seat. After a while, Luo Zheng's car stopped on the side of the road. Luo Zheng glanced at Luoqiu from the rearview mirror. He didn't open his eyes, so he unbuckled his seatbelt and got out of the car. There was a man in his 30s waiting here on the side of the road, carrying a lot of things in his hands. Luo Zheng. The man saw Luo Zheng get out of the car and called out. However, Luo Zheng quickly walked over and pulled the man away. The man glanced at the van thoughtfully and asked, Is there someone in the van? There's a guest. He fell asleep. It's not good to wake him up. Luo Zheng nodded. Why don't you stop buying things? I know your environment. Don't waste the money. Keep some for yourself. It's okay. It's just some nutrition. It's for the elderly. Just accept it. The man tried hard. Zheng, just say it's from your friend. Ai, brother-in-law, I really don't want it. How much have you brought these days? I can't finish it. The things. I'll leave the things here. I have to work. I'll go first. The man quickly put the things on the road and ran away. Sister. Luo Zheng watched the man go away and finally shook his head. He looked at the pile of things on the ground and helplessly carried them to the car. But when he opened the door, he saw that Luoqiu had woken up. Luo Zheng was stunned and smiled awkwardly. He lowered his head and stuffed the things into the back seat. On the way home, Luo Zheng talked about the man. The man's name was Wei Taisetsu. He was a troublemaker. When he was young, he didn't learn good things. He mixed with a group of people and lived a muddle-headed life. How do I put it? I don't know why my sister fell in love with Taisetsu. Luo Zheng shook his head. When they were together, there was a big fight at home. She thought that after getting married, she would be more mature. But in the end, troublesome things happened again and again. Troublesome? Well, Luo Zheng shook his head. I'll tell you directly. My ex-brother-in-law is a regular in prison. Over the years, he had been in prison 5 times. Prison was like home to him. He just got out the year before last. I heard that he committed some crime recently and was locked up for a few days. Do you understand now? Boss Luo nodded. Luo Zheng was still driving. Actually, it's good to get divorced early. Otherwise, my sister will probably have to live a hard life. How is my cousin now? Oh, she remarried. Luo Zheng chuckled. Her current husband is a junior high school teacher. He's very nice. Oh, by the way, you should be able to meet him in a few days. I'll introduce you then. Let's go back and see Grandma first. Luochio whispered. I have time later. I have to go back to the old house to tidy it up. I'll stay there for a few days. How many years has that house been empty? Luo Zheng shook his head and said, How long will it take you to tidy it up? Why don't you stay at my place tonight? Your brother built a new house a few years ago. There's a place for you to live. Luochio said, I can't just come back and ignore my old house. You're right. Okay then, I won't force you. Luo Zheng was still smiling. Go home, go home. The old lady will be happy to see you. You don't know, but she's been talking about the past more and more recently. Something about when she was young. A lot of capital began to pour into the town. The rapid development was not in harmony with the town's ability to bear. However, it was undeniable that the capital had brought a lot of business opportunities to the town. Naturally, there were more jobs. For example, there was clearly a lot of demand for construction workers. Wei Taisetsu climbed over the wall and tied his jacket to his body. He put on a safety hat and hurriedly picked up 2 buckets of water. Wei Taisetsu! Someone suddenly shouted behind Wei Taisetsu. It was one of the foremen of the construction site. Foreman, what's the matter? Wei Taisetsu turned around and put down the buckets in his hands. The foreman said angrily, Wei Taisetsu, do you still want to work or not? Where did you die just now? Wei Taisetsu said, My stomach wasn't feeling well. I went to relieve myself. The foreman sneered, Relieve yourself? I think you're slacking off. Wei Taisetsu, someone saw you sneaking out. I also clearly saw you climb over the wall. You actually dare to lie to me? You've always been so dishonest, haven't you? You only know how to talk nonsense, right? Wei Taisetsu panicked, Foreman, I'm sorry. I had an emergency here. Really? I promise I won't do it again. The foreman shook his head and pointed with his finger. Wei Taisetsu, I'm telling you. I know what you are. If not for the lack of manpower here, I would rather move bricks myself than hire a casual worker like you. Listen up. Know your place. Don't do anything sneaky. Otherwise, don't expect anyone to hire you in the nearby construction sites. You're slacking off today. 80 points deducted. Foreman, I just went out for a while. Do you still want to work here? Yes. Foreman. Wei Taisetsu nodded, I know. I won't do it again. I won't. Get to work. The foreman shouted. Wei Taisetsu silently picked up the buckets and turned to leave. Chapter 6:19. Because of his work, Luochio's father settled in the city where he lived early. But at the same time, due to the residual system of some towns and villages and the unclear countryside, Luochio's family's house in his hometown was still there. It was a rather old 2-story brick house. The left rear and back were simply pasted with cement. The side of the rear door was pasted with small square tiles. The houses next to it were the kind of mud houses called old houses. As for the newly built houses in the village, they were on the other side of the village road facing these old houses. The young and the old were separated by an era's road. They were not far away, but they faced each other. The old woman insisted on living in her old house. Late autumn passed early and the weather became cold. The adults had no choice but to buy some small heaters. They did not think that they could really drive away the cold. They just thought that it was a good thing to drive away the humidity in the old house. When Luocio saw the grandmother, she was half awake, drinking the rice soup fed by her relatives. This was the only thing the old woman could eat at the moment. The person feeding the old woman should be Luocio's uncle's wife. The aunt said in front of the old woman that Luocio was back. The old woman did not respond. She just babbled something. She wanted to say that she wanted to eat more. Luocio's uncle was smoking outside the room. He looked very tired. Luocio, you have seen it too. She doesn't recognize people now. The doctor said that there are only a few days left. Maybe tomorrow, maybe the day after tomorrow, or even suddenly. He did not finish his words. He just took a puff of the cigarette that had burned to the end. It almost burned to the filter before he threw it down. Then, he lit a new one. He looked at Luocio and said, "If you want to go in and see her, go in. If you are tired, you can rest first." Luocio nodded and walked into the room. He called this Grandma Xiaochun. His aunt made way for him, so he took a look at Grandma Xiaochun's appearance. The aunt wiped the corners of Grandma Xiaochun's mouth with a handkerchief. She wanted to eat, but it seemed difficult for her to swallow. "Sigh, I actually had a gastrectomy a few years ago. I thought that stomach cancer would be cured, right? But a few years later, it relapsed. Now, no matter what I eat, I will vomit it out." Luocio reached out and held Grandma Xiaochun's palm. It was as cold as a piece of ice and even a little stiff. "Grandma Xiaochun, I am Luocio. Do you still remember me?" The internal organs of her body had been weakened to the extreme. Her lifespan had really come to an end. She was like a lamp that had run out of oil. The natural cycle was changing in Grandma Xiaochun's body. "She can't hear anything." The uncle's wife shook her head. "Let me do it," Luocio said softly and took the bowl of rice soup from her hand. "Don't dirty you. She will vomit," the aunt suddenly said in a low voice. But Grandma Xiaochun could swallow it this time. Mouthful by mouthful, he gradually looked satisfied. The aunt looked at this scene in amazement. She couldn't remember how long it had been since she last saw the son of her husband's cousin. Luo Zheng was also a very filial child, but he couldn't do this kind of thing. The aunt subconsciously compared the two children of the same generation. This room seemed to have unknowingly become less stuffy. Even though no one was talking, the feeling was different. It feels like a somewhat magical child. The aunt thought subconsciously. "It's too late. Why don't you rest at my house tonight?" After visiting for the time being, the aunt pointed to the new house across the village road and said to Luocio, "You haven't stayed in that house for a long time. It's not good to tidy it up at night. These days are not long. You might as well stay at my house. We are family. It's good to talk." Luocio glanced at the new house opposite. In fact, the lights were turned on early. He could see people walking inside. It was just that he didn't see anyone coming. In this kind of village, every family closed their doors at night. The lights inside the house were very bright, even illuminating the village road. But at the same time, it was very quiet. Even if there were watchdogs, the dogs were just wandering with their heads down at this time, or squatting on the ground. No one knew what they were looking at. In the countryside, or as the old people said, the dog's eyes could see more things than people. He said, "It's okay. I will just do it casually." "That's fine. If there is any inconvenience, just come and knock on the door." The uncle nodded directly at this moment, and then gave Luocio a flashlight. "But the power switch is broken, and it has not been repaired. The electricity should not be used. The water should still be usable. Why don't you stay at my house?" "I'm not afraid of the dark." Luocio smiled. It's not a problem of the dark, it's. The aunt hesitated, but the uncle glared at her. But since his aunt had said so, his uncle could only glare at him and helplessly said to Luo Chiu, "Everyone says that your house is a little dirty. I haven't lived here for so long. Naturally, it is not clean. Isn't this normal?" Luo Chiu smiled. "It's not this." The uncle lowered his voice. "They all say it is haunted. Where is the power switch? I kind of forgot." Luo Chiu suddenly asked. The uncle was stunned and shone the flashlight over. It was under the eaves of the house. Luo Chiu walked over, opened the cover, and pushed the power switch. The small light bulb in front of the house directly lit up. "Strange, this is obviously broken." The uncle looked at his wife in surprise and frowned. "I tried. It can't be turned on at all." Luo Chiu said, "If there is light, it should be clean." "Okay then." The uncle and aunt did not continue to force it. In their opinion, a child like Luo Chiu, who grew up in a big city, would naturally not believe anything. Of course, they were not superstitious about these things. It was just that fear was innate. As time passed, there would always be some taboos. Moreover, the village was really quiet. They soon returned to Grandma Xiaochun's house. They pushed the door and walked in. Their pace was a little fast, and the speed of closing the door was also a little fast. Luo Chiu shook his head, opened the door, and called Ren Xiling. Ren Xiling asked with concern, "How is it? Did your relatives bully you? I remember that there is an uncle in your house. He is very rude and his words are very unpleasant." Luo Chiu said, "What strange things have you imagined? Tsk, you treat my conscience as a dog's lung." Ren Xiling muttered, and then said, "Right, how is Grandma Xiaochun in my hometown?" Luo Chiu opened the door and turned on the light as he spoke. "Almost. I heard that it happened in these 2 days." Life and death are unpredictable. Ren Xiling sighed. Luo Chiu said, "Why hasn't there been a power outage in the house here for so many years?" Ren Xiling said casually, "Oh, when your dad was still alive, he had been paying the electricity bill. Anyway, no one lived there later, and the electricity bill was not very expensive, so I didn't stop." "Ai, have you eaten?" "I have eaten. I will tidy up the room first. Let's talk later." He looked at the ceiling above his head and said, "Some very subtle sounds were coming from upstairs. Normal people probably wouldn't be able to hear it." "Okay, do as you see fit. I still have to work overtime for a while. And don't eat instant noodles." Luo Chiu said one last sentence and turned off the phone. Luo Chiu closed the door behind him. His eyes were still staring at the ceiling above. Although the lights were turned on, there were a lot of cobwebs in the house that had not been lived in for a long time. Entering the door was the living room. Next to the living room was the stairs to the second floor. When Luo Chiu climbed the stairs and came upstairs, he also turned on the lights in the corridor here. There were only 3 rooms upstairs. One was the house of his grandparents who passed away early, one was where his father lived when he was a child, and the last one was for storing some miscellaneous items. At the end was the utility room. Judging from the sounds that could be heard downstairs, the location was in this room at the end. Luo Chiu walked to the door of the utility room and put his hand on the lock of the room. It seemed that he did not intend to twist it. He just stopped here. The lights in the corridor had not been used for a long time. Maybe it was because of the poor connection. At this time, the lights were flashing. They would not suddenly turn off, but would light up and then dim, and make a kind of electric current sound. After a while, Luo Chiu took back his hand. He did not directly open the door, but gently knocked on the door. Dong dong, dong dong dong. Dong dong. Chapter 620. Tick-tock. A crisp sound suddenly rang out from the room, as if something had fallen onto the concrete floor. It was the sound of glass beads rolling. A small glass bead slowly rolled out from the dark room through the crack of the door. Tick-tock. This time, there were more than one ticking sound in the room. Then, one after another, green, blue, or colorful glass beads began to slip out from the crack of the door like eyeballs. Some of them were even bouncing, rolling, and slipping, right under Luacio's feet. Luacio glanced at it, then leaned over and picked up one of the glass beads. He glanced at the crack of the door. A face was staring at Luacio at this time. It was only a very small face, and the sparse hair was tangled messily, like a dark green sea lily growing by the sea. The eyes were huge, but not symmetrical. The left eyeball had even peeled off, hanging on the face like it was broken. There was no way to find the nose of this face, and the cheeks were even broken open. The wound looked like it had been scratched open by something. What was squeezed out of the uneven wound was something soft that was dyed gray. Luacio blinked and reached out to grab the small face. His palm was big enough, so he could even grab the exposed face with one hand. The black door and the crack of the room could not stop Luacio's next move after grabbing the head. Luacio directly pulled it out and looked at it under the flashing light. So this thing is still here. Boss Luo kept it in his hand, but it was just a shabby, rag doll that could almost be thrown away like garbage. Looking at the quiet crack in the room, Luacio said casually, "When I was a child, I came back here once, and this little guy fell somewhere. Grandpa and Grandma were still around at that time. I think they found them after I left." There was still no movement from inside the room. Boss Luo crouched down and picked up the scattered glass beads one by one. He suddenly said, "Are you not going to come out?" A deep and sharp voice suddenly rang out. "Aren't you afraid?" Luacio said indifferently, "This is also my home. What should I be afraid of? Or should I say, what are you afraid of? It's not good to scare people like that." There was a long silence in the room before the voice spoke again. I didn't know someone had returned. I'll stay here for a while. Don't worry, I definitely didn't touch anything in this house. I'll leave now, but please don't call the police. Please believe me." "Aren't you going to eat?" Luacio suddenly asked. "What?" "Well, actually I can't cook now. If you don't mind, you can go downstairs and eat." Luacio smiled and said, "The smell is coming out, your instant noodles are probably going to be burnt." The door of the room was suddenly opened and the light was turned on. The person who was really hiding naturally appeared in front of Luacio. It was a man about 35 or 36 years old, about the same size as Luacio Wei Taisetsu. You really won't call the police?" Wei Taisetsu didn't really go downstairs. At this moment, he was sitting in the utility room on a small plastic stool. He was holding a bowl of Kong X pickled cabbage instant noodles. The noodles were already rolled up on the fork, but he didn't eat. Instead, he looked at Luacio in surprise. Luacio looked inside the room. A rectangular piece of paper was placed on the floor. Next to it were some clothes. Next to it was a small bag. Inside the bag was some rubbish. On the opposite side was a small kettle. Attached to it was something that looked like a car battery. Next to it were several bottles of mineral water. There was also an empty can of 8 treasures kanji on the floor. It was used to store cigarette butt. The curtains of the only window in the room were pulled open slightly. A row of new houses could be seen across the village road. Luacio shook his head and said, "Actually, there is no need for that." Wei Taisetsu was shocked and said in disbelief, "But I didn't ask your house," Luacio said coolly. "Houses are meant for people to live in. Other than that, I can't think of any other use for a house. Besides, didn't you say that you didn't touch anything here? You didn't touch anything before I came back. After I came back, you shouldn't touch anything, right?" Wei Taisetsu looked up and said in shock, You really believe me?" Luacio said calmly, "Otherwise, you wouldn't be staying in this junk room." Wei Taisetsu did not reply. He just lowered his head and ate the instant noodles in big mouthfuls. After he finished eating, Wei Taisetsu even drank the soup before wiping his mouth. "I heard that there is only one child left in this house. She lives in the big city, and hasn't been back for a long time. I thought there was no one here, so I stayed here temporarily. Don't worry, I will leave in a while." "It doesn't matter." Luacio shook his head and said, "I will stay here for a few days. After that, I have to go back." If you don't touch anything else here, it doesn't matter if you stay here. Also, the electricity is connected. Do you want to take a bath? Wei Taisetsu looked at the young man in his early 20s in disbelief. He had no idea what was going on in the other party's mind. How could he be so polite to a stranger who had broken into his house? Won't you feel uncomfortable? Luochu said with a smile. After working for a whole day, won't you feel uncomfortable? Wei Taisetsu suddenly stood up. How do you know I worked for a whole day? Your body is so dirty. If you didn't work, what did you do? Luochu shook his head and said, Don't worry. They know I'm back. Now that they are bathing with the lights on, it won't be strange if they make any noise. What kind of person are you? Wei Taisetsu looked at him silently. It had been a long, long time since he had met someone who could speak to him so politely and politely. What about you? Luochu asked back. You have heard about my family. That means you are from this village? Wei Taisetsu glanced at the small gap in the curtain and sighed. My name is Wei Taisetsu. If this was before, I think you would call me brother-in-law. Luo Jing told me about you. Luochu nodded. When he brought me back today, he mentioned it. So the guest he picked up was you. Wei Taisetsu was stunned. He and this young man had already met before. It was just that they hadn't met face to face. Wei Taisetsu's lips moved. In the end, he said with a bitter smile, Then you know me. Luo Zheng must have told you everything about me. In general, Luochu said. But, no matter what, you should have said that you would be able to find a place to stay, right? You have a job. Wei Taisetsu lowered his head and took out the wrinkled soft pack of cigarette. He only took out half of it and looked at Luochu. It's okay. Luochu opened the window directly. Wei Taisetsu thought about it and stuffed the cigarette box into his pocket. I don't actually come here often. Wei Taisetsu looked at the lights of a row of new houses outside the window. I just came to see the child. My ex-wife would come back here with the child for 1 or 2 days every weekend. I usually come here for 1 or 2 days. Because of Grandma Xiaochun's matter, Luochu's cousin took a leave of absence and came back with the child. When the old woman's time was up, her grandchildren came back one after another. I'm going to see if the appliance for boiling water can still be used. Luochu suddenly smiled and said, You should prepare. Since you are here, you are a guest. As the host, I naturally have to entertain you. You don't have to, but Wei Taisetsu seemed to be unable to stop the actions of this young man. Luochu left the utility room and went downstairs. Or, he suddenly wanted to be treated like this. The visitor is a guest. Wei Taisetsu looked out of the window silently. He suddenly shook his head and muttered to himself, This guy is more courageous than me when I was young. Why didn't I scare him? Only then did he take out his cigarette box again and light up a cigarette. Then, he dug out a cheap pair of binoculars that could be bought for around 10 yuan from the pile of clothes. He leaned against the window sill and didn't reveal his entire face. He just stood there diagonally and stared blankly at the figures moving about in the opposite house. After a while, Wei Taisetsu's phone suddenly vibrated. He looked down at the caller ID on the phone. The word Big Head was written. Wei Taisetsu frowned and quickly threw the phone directly into the pile of clothes. But he seemed to feel that this was not enough, so he grabbed a handful of clothes, covered the phone, and slammed it hard. In this kind of old house, the gas tank used to be used in the past. The water heater was naturally petrified gas. After so many years, there was naturally no gas available. But there was a large stove in the kitchen. The large iron pot on the shelf could be used to boil water. Some of the firewood piled up here in the past could still be used. After Boss Luo made a fire, he began to boil water. The firewood made a crackling sound as it burned in the fire. At this moment, outside the small kitchen window, a shadow quietly floated over. A pale and stiff face stared at him motionlessly. Chapter 6:21. In the bathroom, there was a large and short red plastic basin. In this kind of basin that can be seen everywhere, it was filled with hot water. When Taisetsu walked in, he could see the curling hot steam. He looked at the big basin on the ground. No doubt how tempting it is to take a hot bath in this cold weather. Taisetsu looked at the basin of hot water, lost in thought. In the basin filled with hot steam, there was suddenly a circle of ripples. From the middle, a small ripple spread out, as if the calm water surface was sprinkled with rain. Circle after circle, the water in the basin began to surge. It was originally hot, but now it seemed to be boiling again. Surge, surge, surge. The surging water suddenly splashed out from the basin, and a little water splashed on Taisetsu's body. Like being shot by a spark from a burning firewood, a burning sensation made Taisetsu suddenly shrink his arm. His whole body was stuck to the wall of the bathroom. In this cold weather, his forehead was oozing wet sweat. Knock, knock. Suddenly there was a knock on the door. Taisetsu's body instantly trembled. The boiling water at this time had returned to calm. Those surging water splashes seemed to have never existed, only the curling hot steam. It was like a hallucination. At this time, Luacio's voice came from outside the bathroom. Maybe it's a little dirty inside. I didn't have time to clean it, sorry. Then I found a new towel. Of course, it's been there for many years. It's not new, but it should be used. Just use it first. No problem. Taisetsu responded in a low voice in the bathroom. He took a deep breath, calmed his voice, and quickly responded, I'm fine with anything. With that, Taisetsu stuck to the wall, bypassing the big basin. He quickly took off his clothes and took a towel. He didn't touch the hot water, but turned on the tap and began to wipe his body with cold water. In the cold weather, Taisetsu's breathing quickened like a drowning man, making it difficult for him to breathe. When Taisetsu came out of the bathroom, the towel was casually draped over his shoulder. He was still holding a bundle of clothes in his hand, while she was only wearing a vest and a jacket. He found that Luacio was cleaning the living room. Some things were taken out of the old cabinets and placed on the coffee table. At this time, Luacio looked at Taisetsu and smiled. The 4 seasons flowers in the courtyard should have bloomed recently. I picked some and made some hot tea. Drink some. You're welcome. Taisetsu nodded subconsciously. It was a strange feeling. Although this guy had some relationship with him, it was only before he divorced his ex-wife. But now, there was no relationship at all. In fact, Taisetsu had heard that his ex-wife had such a relative, but they rarely contacted each other. Taisetsu wasn't even sure if he had met this young man in front of him. Maybe they had a meal together during a visit during Chinese New Year, or maybe they didn't. After such a long time, he couldn't remember many things clearly, let alone this kind of relationship that couldn't even be considered a relative now. Are you okay? Luacio looked at Taisetsu, who was in a daze, and asked. Oh, I'm fine. Taisetsu shook his head. He had an impulse to drink this hot tea. However, sprinkling some freshly picked osmanthus flowers into the hot water was a far-fetched thing for Taisetsu. He always felt that this was a taste that only women should have. However, the taste turned out to be very good. It was really good. This was the most intuitive feeling after Taisetsu took a sip. He held a very ordinary glass cup with both hands. The temperature was just right. There seemed to be a warm current spreading from his palms to his body, dispelling the coldness of the cold water he washed. This tea, I put some sugar in it. I found it in the kitchen. Luacio said casually, You don't like sweetness? No. Taisetsu shook his head. It's good. It's good, thank you. Do you feel uncomfortable? Luacio suddenly asked at this time. Taisetsu was stunned, but he saw Luacio reach out and point at his neck. Taisetsu subconsciously reached out and touched his neck. There was some raised flesh on the rough skin. It was a scar exposed from his chest. Taisetsu shook his head. It's okay. It happened a long time ago. That's good. Luacio nodded, picked up the feather duster and began to sweep the corner of the TV cabinet. Taisetsu even felt as if he didn't exist. He couldn't help but ask, That Just call me Luochio. Taisetsu hesitated. Don't you want to know how I got this wound? Luochio asked back. Do you want to say it? Taisetsu opened his mouth and carefully drank the osmanthus hot tea in the cup in his hand. The light sweetness didn't seem to be honey. He didn't know what good candy could be found in this room. This taste made him a little infatuated. Taisetsu finally opened his mouth. When I was young, I didn't know anything, so I was chopped. From my neck all the way down to my stomach. Taisetsu shook his head and sighed deeply. He leaned on the long painted chair made of lychee wood, looked at Luochio, and said with a wry smile, At that time, I was so scared that I really thought I would die like this. At that time, I should be 17 years old, right? Now that I think about it, so long has passed, and I am getting more and more scared. That's really dangerous. Luochio nodded, stopped, and added some new hot water for Taisetsu. Taisetsu always felt that this kind of hospitality was too extravagant for him. It was so extravagant that he didn't know how to face it. He could only hold the cup with both hands, for fear that it would suddenly slip away from his hands. Taisetsu suddenly remembered something. I remember that your father was a police officer in a big city? He's not there anymore. Luochio looked at the black and white photo hanging in the corner of the living room. That was the only photo of his father and his grandparents when he was young before he was born. I seem to have heard of it. Taisetsu nodded. You don't have it easy. Luochio said indifferently, It's okay, life has to go on. Taisetsu wanted to say something but stopped and suddenly asked, Like you, the son of a police officer, don't you have any opinion about a prisoner like me? Luochio said casually, But you are out now, aren't you? You are out now, so you are not a prisoner. You are out now. This sentence echoed in Daz's mind over and over again, making him feel suffocated in his heart. I'm tired. Taisetsu quickly stood up, dodging Luochio's eyes, and hurriedly went upstairs. Don't worry, I will leave early tomorrow morning, and won't disturb anyone. Finally, thank you for the tea. Daz subconsciously took the teacup that he left with and put it on the steps of the stairs. Luochio glanced at the ceiling, which was probably the position of the utility room, and whispered, Good night. After that, Luochio scooped up a pile of dust and walked towards the kitchen. There was a door in the kitchen. He went to the backyard to put some garbage or something, which was probably the structure of the house. When passing by the bathroom, Luochio took a look. The basin full of hot water was untouched. Well, before dawn, Taisetsu quietly walked out of the kitchen, climbed over the low wall of the yard, and left silently. He took all his belongings with him, including the sheets of paper which served as mats. But he left a note. I hope that Luochio cannot tell others that I have been here, and I promise that I will never go into his house again. At dawn, Luochio opened the door of the old house in his hometown. He remembered that when he came back from summer vacation when he was a child, he could see a rice field in front of him if he looked from here early in the morning. At that time, there were many people who woke up earlier than him. At that time, there was no row of new houses on the opposite side of the village road. At that time, it was as early as now. At that time, the doors of every house were open, and he could always see people. He walked towards Grandma Xiaochun's house and knocked on the door a few times. It was his uncle's wife who opened the door for him. The aunt looked a little panicked at this moment, as if she was frightened. What's wrong? Luochio. The aunt stopped talking and became nervous again. In the end, she opened the door directly. I don't know what to say. See for yourself. The aunt led Luochio into the house. His uncle was pacing back and forth in the hall at this moment. He looked uneasy. The house was full of the smell of cigarette. At this moment, a short figure walked out of the kitchen. It was wet Nurse Xiaochun. Grandma Xiaochun's face was not pale. Instead, there was a faint, rosy color. She seemed to be in good spirits. Grandma Xiaochun held a bowl with a big rooster pattern in her hands. Her face was full of smiles. Come on, I made noodles. Let's have breakfast. Chapter 6:22. Grandma Xiaochun noticed that there was one more person at this time, so she glanced at Luochio suspiciously. Then, she looked at Luochio's uncle, Luo Shan, and asked curiously, Luo Shan, who is this? He is Luo Qi's son, Luochio. Yesterday, he came back from the provincial capital to see you. Have you forgotten? Luo Shan looked at Grandma Xiaochun nervously. It's really Luochio. Grandma Xiaochun quickly put down the bowl of noodles in her hand, then wiped her hands quickly on the apron hanging on her body. She walked directly to Luochio. The old woman raised her head, and her eyes were a little excited. She grabbed Luochio's palm with both hands. Come, let Grandma take a good look at you. You have grown so big. So alike. So alike. You really look like your father. Grandma Xiaochun grasped Luochio's palm tightly. Even Luo Shan, who was watching from the sidelines, could feel her strength. Grandma Xiaochun wiped her eyes at this time and said with a smile, Come, Luochio. Grandma will also serve you some noodles. I have noodles when I get up in the morning. You can't eat them outside. Come, come, child. With that said, Grandma Xiaochun pulled Luochio into the kitchen behind the house. Luo Shan and his wife looked at each other. His wife was quite nervous at this time. Dad, why did your mother suddenly? I still can't figure it out. Why does she look like she is fine? She scared me to death. Do you think it could be the final radiance of the setting sun? How would I know? Luo Shan shook his head. She is so sick that the attending doctor in the hospital said that she can't be saved. But no matter what, she looks better than yesterday. You go and inform them about the situation. By the way, go and see if Shanshan has gone to work. She is also a doctor. Let her come over and take a look first. Okay, I will go now. His wife quickly ran out of the door. Grandma Xiaochun opened the lid of the kitchen pot, and a burst of hot air came out. Luochio leaned over, pushed the rising hot air with his palm and smiled. It smells so good. Smells good, doesn't it? If it smells good, eat more. Grandma Xiaochun said happily, Your father liked to eat it the most when he was young. Yes, I heard him mention it. Luochio nodded. Grandma Xiaochun carried the noodles and soup. She sighed and said, But I can't see it. What a pity. She placed the bowl in front of Luochio, and Luochio took it with both hands. Grandma Xiaochun raised her head at this time. She pursed her lips and smiled. Child, thank you for coming to see me. If it weren't for you, I'm afraid my old bones would be. Luochio gently shook his head. Grandma Xiaochun patted Luochio's palm lightly. I understand. There are some rules, right? Although I don't know what happened to you, I know you are a good child. Because your eyes are exactly the same as your father's. Luochio smiled. Really? Grandma Xiaochun chuckled and said, Don't you take it seriously, child? Then, I will listen to you. Luochio nodded. Grandma Xiaochun said, Eat quickly. The noodles won't taste good if they are soaked. If there is not much time, accompany me to pick some fresh osmanthus flowers after we finish eating. I will make some stuffing and make some reunion dumplings for everyone to eat tonight. Okay. Reunion dumplings. Taisetsu rented a farmer's house near the construction site where he recently worked as a part-time worker. It was not expensive, only 300 yuan a month, but it was also simple and crude. Boss, give me a bowl of vegetarian noodles. This was the breakfast stall on the roadside in another village where he rented a house. At this time, the truck heading to the construction site had already set off a yellow dragon of dust. Taisetsu ate these free pickled radishes in big mouthfuls. Basically, the table next to him was filled with people like him, who went to the construction site to work after eating. After a while, when the vegetarian noodles were only half eaten, Taisetsu's shoulder was patted by someone. He turned his head and saw a slightly chubby man in a suit with shiny hair that was parted to the side. He had a small leather bag under his arm. The man was still drinking a box of lemon tea in his hand. At this time, he sat down with a smile. Brother Zhe, I knew you were here. Don't say anything if you have something to say. If you don't have anything to say, just leave. I have to work after eating. I don't have time to entertain you. Taisetsu added a little chili sauce to the vegetarian noodles. He did not even look at the chubby man. Hee, brother Zhe, Big Head has been your brother for so many years. You don't have to be so cold, right? The chubby man, who looked well dressed. Big Head still looked like a smiling person. You see, I have been calling you these days. I have been calling you for a long time, but you didn't listen to me. So, I came here to look for you early in the morning. Speaking of which, I am unlucky. I stepped on dog shit this morning. I am so unlucky. As he spoke, Big Head stood up, took out a tissue, and wiped his leather shoes with all his might. Taisetsu snorted and said indifferently, "Waiting for me? I think you are waiting for me, right?" I said, "Don't look for me anymore. Last time was already the last time. I've already made myself clear." "Brother Zhe, how can you say that we are waiting for you, right?" Big Head stood up. "Well, I think you shouldn't eat these noodles. Come, brother, I will invite you to Hong Fu restaurant to eat something good. I will find you a girl at the elegant room tonight to relax." As he said that, he reached out to pull Taisetsu's arm, intending to pull him up. Unexpectedly, Taisetsu frowned, swung his arm, and said in a slightly deep voice, "Big Head, what do you want to do?" I said, "Don't bother me. I have to go to the construction site later." "Ai, my brother Zhiyu. I don't know what to say to you. Look at this broken construction site. Why are you still working?" Big Head sat down again. "You calculate. You work so hard that you only earn 100 yuan a day. What can you do with that? In my opinion, you might as well not do it anymore, okay? At least it is clean money." Taisetsu looked at Big Head coldly. Big Head seemed to be not the first time that Taisetsu treated him this way. He was not angry. He sighed. "Aya, brother Zhe, how can money be divided into clean and unclean? If you have a lot of money, who dares to say that you are unclean? Those who think highly of themselves throw a lot of money. They are willing to eat shit even if you ask them to. And those who really don't do anything can't get in. Besides, back then, didn't you also?" Big Head. Taisetsu slammed his chopsticks on the table and glared at him. Big Head shrunk his neck subconsciously. He suddenly recalled this ruthless character more than 10 years ago, when he took a watermelon knife and chopped people. "Brother Zhe, don't be angry. It's my fault. It's my fault. I said something that shouldn't be said. My mouth is cheap. I punish myself, I punish myself. I slap myself, slap myself." Big Head gently patted his own mouth twice. "Brother Zhe, calm down, calm down. I'm not angry with you." Taisetsu shook his head. "Really? I said that brother Zhe is generous, loyal, and a good brother. Get out of here right now. I definitely won't be angry with you," Taisetsu said coldly. Big Head's expression stiffened and he said, "Brother Zhe, you see, I have no choice. Big Head, don't want to disturb you, but I have to work. Actually, my boss asked me to look for you." Taisetsu frowned and shook his head. "You go back and tell him that I'm not free. Let him find someone else." With that said, Taisetsu put 3 yuan on the table, stood up and walked out. Big Head said to Taisetsu's back at this time, "Taisetsu, you have to think carefully. My boss, President Xiao, said that he wants to see you. Don't make it difficult for me. You know President Xiao's means, right?" Taisetsu turned around abruptly. "Big Head, what do you want to do?" "Sister-in-law." Big Head looked at Taisetsu. "Oh no, it's your ex-sister-in-law and your child. I heard that she is living well now. She even found a new man. He is a teacher, right?" "Big Head, I'm warning you." Taisetsu widened his eyes, like a leopard out of the cage. He grabbed Big Head's collar and pulled him in front of him. "Don't you dare to move. Don't be nervous, don't be nervous. I'm just saying it casually." Big Head's whole back was soaked in cold sweat. He subconsciously swallowed his saliva. "Brother Zhe, why don't we go to Hong Fu restaurant to eat and talk?" Big Head nervously reached out and patted Taisetsu's hand that grabbed his collar. Brother Je? Taisetsu suddenly pushed Big Head away, turned around and walked toward a black Passat parked next to the breakfast stall. Chapter 623. Big Head drove his Passat while looking at Taisetsu. Brother Je, please smile more when you see President Xiao. It's not the first time I've dealt with this person. Taisetsu looked out of the window and suddenly asked, "Why did you change your car? Did your boss reward you?" Big Head said proudly, "Brother Je, I'm just trying to make a living." Taisetsu looked at Big Head and said, "Making a living? Didn't you see what I am now? Big Head, you're not young anymore. You should have saved some money in the past few years, right? Don't follow that Xiao guy anymore. Do your own small business, marry an honest woman, and live a decent life. It's better than being on tenterhooks." Brother Je, we are now doing business under the name of the Industry and Commerce Bureau. It's legitimate. It's okay. Is it legitimate? Taisetsu shook his head. Okay, I'm completely out of touch with this world. I won't talk about it. AI, Brother Je, what are you talking about? Big Head said quickly. I know what you're talking about, but the times are different now. It's not like you don't know that we're not doing what we used to do. Besides, don't talk about it in the future. We are civilized people now. What we have is called a dynamic social organization. Dynamic social organization? Taisetsu chuckled disdainfully. They didn't talk on the way to Hongfu Building. In general, Xiao was indeed a businessman. In recent years, especially after the town began to develop, he personally set up an engineering company, but he didn't have really knowledgeable workers in his hands. This was because President Xiao specialized in dealing with demolition for those companies. Although the government had policies to pave the way for the development zone and build large-scale construction. However, not everyone was willing to move away from their original place. Therefore, President Xiao was a professional in this regard. Of course, President Xiao was more careful when doing things. He never went too far. He never used anyone in his company. Boss Xiao was rich, and Taisetsu needed money. In recent years, they naturally hit it off. Every time Taisetsu was released from prison, he could get a decent reward from Boss Xiao. When Taisetsu saw Boss Xiao, it was already 9:30 in the morning. Hongfu Building opened last year and was considered a high-end place in this small town. Taisetsu, come, sit. Boss Xiao, who was in his early 40s, had a big smile on his face as he asked Taisetsu to sit down. You see, I've been busy recently. I didn't even have time to properly greet you after you came out. It's my fault. Let's drink some tea. President Xiao, I won't be drinking this tea. I'm afraid I can't afford it. Taisetsu shook his head and didn't seem to give any face to the people here. I made it very clear last time. I won't do anything. Big Head kept pushing Taisetsu's arm. At the same time, he looked at his boss awkwardly and smiled. President Xiao, my brother just said there's no problem. We just talked about it. President Xiao just stopped smiling and waved to Big Head. You wait for me outside. I'll talk to Taisetsu. Big Head had no choice but to push the door and leave. Only Taisetsu and President Xiao were left in the private room. President Xiao made a gesture to let Taisetsu sit down and talk. Taisetsu didn't want to offend this guy too much. He pulled out a chair and sat down. He said seriously, President Xiao, it's not that I don't want to help you. It's just that this time, I told myself that I'm going to stop. Besides, you don't have to look for me. If it's because of Big Head, then it's not necessary. I'm old. I'm afraid of doing things. I can't be compared to the young people nowadays. I believe that with your power today, it's easy to find someone. Hey, how can the young people nowadays keep their composure? President Xiao poured some hot tea for Taisetsu and nodded. Yes, it's the same whoever does it. The key is what happens after it's done. It's not something that anyone can do. You see, those young people are impatient. They can't calm down at all, okay? They might be able to endure it if they're locked up for a month or two, but it might not be so after a long time. What if they can't stand it and talk nonsense inside? That's not good, right? President Xiao patted Taisetsu's shoulder and said earnestly, Taisetsu, you're different. We've worked together. I know you very well. What kind of person are you? You're loyal, you keep your promises, and you separate public and private matters. It's hard to find someone like that. It's really hard to find someone like that. Taisetsu, please help me one last time, okay? Besides, I've calculated it well. You won't be in there for long. At most, you'll be in there for a year or two. You'll definitely be out. Also, I promise that the money this time will definitely satisfy you. 500,000. You'd better find someone else. Taisetsu was silent for a while and finally shook his head. Why? You think it's too little? President Xiao smiled and said, the price is negotiable. After all, we're partners. We're good friends. How about this? I'll personally fork out another 30,000. How about that? Thank you, President Xiao. Taisetsu clasped his hands together and saluted. But I said before that I won't do it again. Really, can you let me go? Find someone else. I believe you'll definitely find someone more suitable than me. Taisetsu, what do you mean? Is it fun to push me again and again? President Zhao's eyes narrowed. It's my fault. My tone was a bit harsh. Taisetsu stood up and bowed toward President Xiao. He apologized. President Xiao, I know you're very busy. I'm sorry for wasting your time. How about this? I'll treat you to this tea as an apology. Alright, let's part on good terms. With that, Taisetsu no longer looked at President Zhao's expression and turned to walk toward the door. At this moment, President Xiao suddenly slammed the table hard and said in a deep voice, Wei Daz, you don't want to drink the toast, but you have to drink the forfeit, right? If you dare to walk out of this door, I'm afraid you won't have a good time. Taisetsu stopped and slowly turned around. He slowly said, President Xiao, I said, let's part on good terms. Taisetsu Wei, you don't have the qualifications to negotiate with me. Taisetsu expressionlessly walked toward President Xiao and directly walked in front of him. President Xiao was a person who had made a name for himself. He was unyielding and didn't move. President Xiao sneered, Taisetsu Wei, I'm polite to you. I hope you'll be polite to me. You know the consequences of offending me. You have to think it through. Then I'll tell you the truth. Taisetsu Wei looked at him coldly. Xiao Yuqing, I'm telling you, Wei Taisetsu Wei, am just a piece of trash. I'm not as precious as you are now. But remember, if you dare to make life difficult for me, I can also make life difficult for you. Yes, I have thrown away the knife that I used to slash people for many years. But if I want to find it, I will definitely find it. And the first one to cut people will be you. You. Xiao Yuqing also widened his eyes. But he felt a chill down his spine. Taisetsu Wei indifferently said, There are rules in the underworld. Don't implicate your wife and child. Xiao Yuqing, you also have a wife and child. Don't force me to do that. Taisetsu Wei left. Xiao Yuqing watched Taisetsu Wei leave the room before he sat down. He picked up the teacup with trembling hands. He didn't know how the tea tasted like. At this time, Big Head hurriedly walked in and said in a panic, Director Xiao, what happened? Get out. Useless thing. Xiao Yuqing stared at Big Head. Big Head had no choice but to quickly leave the room. But before he closed the door, Xiao Yuqing suddenly shouted, Wait a minute. Please say. Big Head had to be respectful again. You help me buy 2 tickets. Xiao Yuqing suddenly stopped. He looked at Big Head up and down and suddenly shook his head. It's okay. You go pay the bill and then come back to the company and wait for me. Okay. Big Head was a little confused, but he didn't say anything and directly went to pay the bill. Xiao Yuqing then slightly tapped the table with his finger and pondered. Good. You Taisetsu Wei. Xiao Yuqing suddenly showed a trace of a sneer. He calmly picked up his mobile phone, It was his wife who called. Old Xiao, what's the matter? I'm at the beauty salon. Isn't the child at home always clamoring to go to Disneyland? How about this, you ask for a few days off and take him to Disneyland to play, so that he won't make a fuss all day long. What's wrong with you? You suddenly want to go there? Doesn't the child need to go to school? Old Xiao, let me tell you, this child's grades are bad enough. You're the one who indulges him. I won't take him there. Okay, I won't argue with you about this. I've already decided. You tell the child that if he doesn't do well in this semester's final exam, he won't get pocket money next year. After leaving Hongfu Building, Taisetsu didn't immediately leave this place. He hid in the nearby alley and kept observing the entrance of Hongfu Building. After seeing Xiao Yuqing leave, Taisetsu also left this place. He didn't go back to the construction site, but just made a phone call to the mean foreman. Of course, he couldn't avoid a round of scolding. Of course, Taisetsu simply put a long distance away from the phone and let the foreman vent. Taisetsu couldn't help but think, if it was before, with his hot temper, maybe something would happen to this mean foreman at night. Taisetsu shook his head. After leaving this place, he called a motorcycle. He suddenly had a place he wanted to go. Soon after, Taisetsu came to a residential area. Of course, it was not comparable to the residential areas in big cities. It was just a small residential area surrounded by a few buildings. It wasn't high, each building was about 6 floors. Naturally, there was no elevator. The gatekeeper was an old man who was taking a nap at this moment. Taisetsu easily found the door of one of the houses. When he was about to knock on the door, he suddenly stopped. Taisetsu washed his hands with mineral water first, then washed his face. Then he tidied up his clothes, took a deep breath, and gently knocked on the door a few times. Not long after, there was finally a response from the house. It was a woman's voice, a little low and vigilant, and even a little uneasy. "Who is it?" the voice inside the door asked. Taisetsu took a deep breath again, then said, "Mrs. Lin, it's me, Gan Jing. Don't you remember?" The sound of the door opening, then the security door was opened. An old woman with gray hair and an old face was seen holding the door frame with both hands. The woman rolled her eyelids, blinking but tilting her ears. "It's really Gan Jing. Isn't it me?" Taisetsu said with a smile, and his hands quickly held the woman's hand. Mrs. Lin's hand. "Mrs. Lin, can't you recognize my voice?" I recognize it. Mrs. Lin couldn't close her mouth at this moment. "Gan Jing, come in, you haven't come to see me for a long time. Please walk slowly. Hey, be careful." Taisetsu carefully helped Mrs. Lin walk into the house. Mrs. Lin said, "It's okay, this is my home, I'm familiar with it. Do you really think I'm useless just because I can't see?" "No," Taisetsu said seriously. "How can it be?" Taisetsu helped Mrs. Lin walk into the hall. This house was not big, with 2 rooms, a living room, a kitchen, and a bathroom. However, Mrs. Lin lived here alone, so it naturally didn't seem narrow. Taisetsu saw a bag of plastic flowers in the living room, and there were some clothes on the table. Taisetsu saw Mrs. Lin reach out to touch the coffee table at this moment, wanting to find a cup. He quickly found a cup and put it next to Mrs. Lin's hand, so that she could grab it at once. "Come, wait for me, I'll get you some water." "Okay." Taisetsu took off his shoes at this moment, then tiptoed around Mrs. Lin, and moved the kettle to a place where she could easily reach it. Finally, he tiptoed back to the original place and said casually, "Mrs. Lin, have you started to make these plastic flowers recently? Hey, I remember that I gave you a special welfare allowance, right? Why, you don't have enough money to spend." No. Mrs. Lin quickly said, "Gan Jing, what kind of welfare allowance did you give me? When I went to the bank, it was a few thousand yuan a month. The people inside helped me withdraw money, and I was shocked." Taisetsu smiled and said, "Mrs. Lin, I won't say any more. We are from the International Cross Association, an international organization. A lot of foreign and domestic rich philanthropists are willing to pay, so of course we have more money. Besides, you are the key person we want to help." Mrs. Lin sighed and said, Ganjing, your association gave me so much that I didn't dare to accept it. You said that there are so many people who need help, but you gave me so much. Not good, not good. Taisetsu patted Mrs. Lin's hand. Don't worry, we support the same people. The other people are the same as you. Mrs. Lin said dubiously, Really? Taisetsu said softly, Mrs. Lin, you still don't believe me? Mrs. Lin shook her head and said, I don't believe anyone but you. Ganjing, to be honest, if it weren't for your cross association, if you didn't find me, I wouldn't be here now. Not only did you take care of me, but you also gave me such a house. I really can't believe it. But this is true. If I didn't meet good people like you, I don't know what to do now. As she spoke, Mrs. Lin was already sobbing and sobbing. Mrs. Lin, it's all in the past. Don't think about unhappy things. Taisetsu grasped Mrs. Lin's hand and comforted her. Life will get better. You are right. Mrs. Lin smiled. Don't mention it, don't mention it. Alright, Ganjing, last time you said you were going on a business trip or something, but you left for half a year. I was worried for a long time. Oh, I went to Africa. There are a lot of people who need help there, so I didn't have time to tell you. Taisetsu smiled and said, Fortunately, Mrs. Lin can't see. Otherwise, what you see now would be a piece of black charcoal. Really? Mrs. Lin was amused, and then asked curiously, Is it as black as the blue sky bow in the TV series? Black. Darker than him. Taisetsu smiled and said, If I hide in that alley, no one can see me. You. Mrs. Lin shook her head. You only know how to make me happy. Alright, wait for me. With that said, Mrs. Lin stood up with her hands on her knees and slowly went into her room. After a while, she walked out slowly. She was holding a scarf in her hand. Mrs. Lin, this is... I knitted it myself. Mrs. Lin smiled and said, I don't know what to knit. If it's clothes, I'm afraid I can't make it well. Pants are even worse, so I can only make something simple. I thought, when you come to see me, I will give it to you. It's just cold now. Come, Mrs. Lin will put it on for you. Mrs. Lin put the scarf on Taisetsu. Is it warm? Yes. Yes, good boy. Chapter 6:24. Grandma Xiaochun planted a lot of osmanthus trees in her yard. When the breeze blew, it was the most beautiful because, in addition to pleasing to the heart, there was also a fragrance. Speaking of which, this tree was broken by you before. Me? Luochio was slightly taken aback. The osmanthus tree that Grandma Xiaochun pointed at looked much shorter than the others, and it did not look very lush. Grandma Xiaochun picked some osmanthus flowers from this osmanthus tree at this time and put them in the basket held by Luochio. She smiled and said, I remember how old it was? About this big, right? Grandma Xiaochun put her hand on her waist and gestured. She smiled kindly. I clamored that I wanted to go home and plant it. Then, I went to break it and broke it. Luochio smiled and said, I also have times when I am naughty. And I remember. That time, I was scolded by my father. Let me think about it. I started to be a little afraid of him. It should be from that time. Isn't that so? Grandma Xiaochun shook her head. Actually, the osmanthus trees here are all yours. Someone has to take care of them when I am gone. It is not easy for them to grow up. If no one takes care of them in the future, it will be a pity. She took Luochio's hand and came to another tree. This one is for your father, but he was afraid that he would not have the time. He could not take care of it well. He also said that there would be no place to put such a big tree in the city, so he kept it. Luochio reached out and stroked the tree trunk. Then, he looked at the osmanthus trees in the garden. Grandma, did you plant all these for us? Grandma Xiaochun nodded. She tilted her head and looked a little lonely. She smiled slowly. The predecessor planted the tree, and the successor enjoyed the shade. Oh, by the way, the one next to it was planted for your biological mother. Then, the one next to it was planted for your later wife. What was her name again? Something like Ling. Z Ling, oh right. Grandma Xiaochun shook her head. Actually, I haven't seen it before. At that time, your father only mentioned it, but he never brought it back. A few years ago, not long after your father left, your uncle and the others went there once. When they came back, they didn't look too good. I think they might have gotten into some unpleasant things. At that time, I wanted to go too, but my old body wasn't good and I couldn't walk. I didn't go to see you. Grandma let you down. Luoqiu shook his head. Grandma Xiaochun looked at Luoqiu and said, Your uncles are actually not that bad. They are just a little slow sometimes and sometimes confused. Please don't be offended and be more forgiving. After all, we are all family. When people get old, they will naturally miss their loved ones. Luoqiu did not intend to respond to Grandma Xiaochun's words directly. He just curiously changed the topic. Grandma, there are so many here. Can you remember who planted the tree for? That's right. Do you think my brain isn't working because I can't take it anymore? Grandma Xiaochun patted Luoqiu's head casually. This tree belongs to your second uncle, Luoshan. The one next to this one belongs to your third uncle. This row was for Aunt Xiaochun's sons and daughters. She had 3 sons and 1 daughter. The next row was for her grandchildren, such as Luo Zheng and others. Here, this is Luo Zheng's. I left a space next to it. I will plant it when he gets a wife, but now. Grandma Xiaochun suddenly stopped talking. Luoqiu continued, Then, this tree should be Sister Luo Zheng's, right? It's cousin Luo Ting's. Grandma Xiaochun patted Luoqiu's shoulder. Her gaze became softer as if she was admiring him. This is Luo Ting's, and then the one behind is her son's. And this one is… What about this one? Luoqiu pointed to the other tree that Grandma Xiaochun stopped talking about and asked. Grandma Xiaochun shook her head and looked at the tree that she stopped talking about. This tree belongs to Taisetsu, Tingting's former husband. Aya, it's a pity that such a good child is gone. Luoqiu said, Yesterday, I heard Luo Jing mention it. Grandma Xiaochun said, In this family, except for Luo Jing, probably no one is willing to mention Taisetsu. When your sister Tingting married Taisetsu, Taisetsu was still young. He was just a little kid. He especially liked to follow behind Taisetsu. He admired Taisetsu, his brother-in-law. Grandma Xiaochun suddenly sighed. I haven't seen Taisetsu for a long time. I don't know if he is doing well now. Luoqiu asked curiously, Grandma, you seem to like this ex-brother-in-law very much? Grandma Xiaochun thought about it and said, How should I say this child? He has a heroic spirit. When my old man was still alive, I said that Taisetsu, this child, would definitely be a good fighter against the Japanese in the past. But young people will always do something wrong. Sometimes they can't even make up for it in a lifetime. A human life. Who can let it go so easily? Human life. Grandma Xiaochun looked at Luoqiu and said, Didn't Luo Jing tell you about it? Luoqiu shook his head. Brother Jing only said that he had been in prison many times. Taisetsu, he. Grandma Xiaochun was silent for a while. At that time, he had just married your sister Tingting. The child had just been born not long ago. I don't know what happened to him. I just heard that he and a few people kidnapped a child. In the end, the child drowned. The police came to Taisetsu's door and took him away. That was his first time in prison. He was sentenced to 5 years. Grandma Xiaochun shook her head. At that time, no one was willing to see him. Only my old man, Tingting, and I went there. When I saw Taisetsu at that time, I almost couldn't recognize him. His eyes were dull and lifeless. He didn't say anything. I think this child knows that he was wrong. But I don't know what happened. After Taisetsu was released, he made another mistake not long after and was arrested again. Over the years, I couldn't figure it out. He obviously regretted it so much, but he still made mistakes again and again. Grandma Xiaochun sighed and said, "Your sister Tingting also remarried because she was desperate. But fortunately, your new brother-in-law is very good. He is educated, reasonable, and humble. It's rare. Don't mention it. Don't mention it. It's annoying." Grandma Xiaochun cheered up and looked at Luochio. "Come, let's pick some more osmanthus flowers." Okay. At this time, a 26-year-old woman walked over quickly. She looked anxious. "Grandma? Grandma? How are you feeling?" "It's Luo Shan," Grandma Xiaochun said curiously. "Haven't you gone to work yet?" Luo Shan had a shrewd and capable aura. At this time, she just glanced at Luochio quickly, then grabbed Grandma Xiaochun's wrist and put her fingers on her pulse. Grandma Xiaochun also let her do it. "Luochio, this is Luo Shan, the youngest daughter of your third uncle. She graduated not long ago. Now, she is a doctor in our town's hospital. You have to be closer in the future, understand?" "Okay." Luochio nodded. Unexpectedly, Luo Shan frowned. "I don't have this leisure time. I know that the old lady is not in good health, but I still brought her out to wander around. What if she catches a cold? Can I bear this responsibility? You are still a college student. You don't even know these simple things. Bastard." "Luo Shan, how can you say that? This is your brother." Grandma Xiaochun frowned. "I wanted to come out myself." Luo Shan said quickly, "Grandma, don't be agitated. Don't talk first. Go into the house. I will give you a auscultation." As she spoke, she directly pulled Grandma Xiaochun and walked back into the house. In the end, she gave Luochio a sharp and unhappy look. "But I am not a college student now." Luochio turned and looked at the osmanthus tree planted for Taisetsu. After a while, Luochio picked up the basket again and continued to pick the osmanthus flowers. "Gan Jing, be careful. Otherwise, I will find someone to fix it." "It's okay, Sister Lin. It's just changing the light bulb. It's a small matter." Sister Lin shook her head and said, "You child, I can't see anything. It's the same whether you change it or not." Taisetsu said, "This can't be done. If there is a leakage, there will always be danger. You live alone. You have to be careful in everything. I will see if there is anything that needs to be fixed later. I will try to fix it as much as possible by today." "All right then. I can't win against you." Sister Lin smiled and said, "Gan Jing, stay for dinner today. I will cook for you." "Sister Lin, there is no need. I am here. I will cook for you later," Taisetsu said quickly. Mrs. Lin said curiously, "Haven't I always been making food for myself? What do you mean you will cook for me? Are you stupid? Can it be that I can't take care of myself, but you can cook for me for a lifetime? Okay, I will cook. You sit down for a while. If it is possible." Taisetsu silently watched Sister Lin's back as she walked into the kitchen while holding the wall. Chapter 6:25. The sound of cooking came from the kitchen. Taisetsu, who had just changed the light bulb, walked to the door and looked at Mrs. Lin. "Mrs. Lin, let me tidy up your house for you." You can just sit and wait for the food. It's okay, it's just a matter of heating it up. It smells so good." Taisetsu smiled. Mrs. Lin said angrily, "It's just scrambled eggs, don't make me happy. Eggs are good, they're nutritious," Taisetsu said as he picked up the broom next to him and began to clean up the living room. "Alright, Ganjing, what time is it now?" "It's only 12 o'clock, not even 1 o'clock. Ganjing turned around and said, "What's wrong?" Mrs. Lin replied, "Nothing, the street's volunteers will come to see me at 2 o'clock. I'm afraid I'll miss the time." Taisetsu was stunned. He stopped and asked calmly, "Street's volunteers?" Mrs. Lin said as she cooked, "Yes, the street's volunteer team. They said it's to visit lonely old people. It's a recent thing. They've been coming to help me do this and that. They're quite good young men." Taisetsu nodded. "That's quite good." Mrs. Lin said, "Oh right, I'll introduce you to each other later." The volunteer team said they've never heard of the Cross Association. They're curious about who you are and are afraid you're a bad person. But I say, how can you be a bad person? Ganjing? Oh, I'm here. Taisetsu quickly said. I just poured some water. Mrs. Lin, what do you say? Mrs. Lin said, what can I say? I'll just say it directly. I said this house was given to me by you, and the allowance was given by you. They were shocked and very curious. They said they didn't expect there to be such a good charity organization. They said if they could meet you, they must get to know you. If there's a chance to cooperate, it'll be even better. We can help more people. Oh right, Ganjing, aren't you back now? Let's get to know each other later. All right. Taisetsu replied calmly with a smile. No problem. We're all in the same industry. It's good to get to know each other. By the way, Mrs. Lin, let me help you take the dishes out. Those young men are really nice. Mrs. Lin smiled and said, sometimes they help me buy groceries for a week. Sometimes he would come back to chat with me, read the newspaper, clean the house, and take me out for a walk. Oh right. He even said that he was going to organize some activities for the elderly on the street and that he would bring me there to watch. Well, it looks really good. Taisetsu helped Mrs. Lin out. I guess so. Mrs. Lin sat down. Suddenly, she seemed to remember something and asked, by the way, Ganjing, how long will you be here this time? The last time you came, you only stayed for 2 months and then you left for half a year. I'm not sure. Let's see how it goes. But they should still be around during this period of time. Taisetsu said casually, why, what's the matter? Mrs. Lin said, if that's the case, do you want to come over for dinner in 2 days? Well, dinner is okay? Taisetsu asked with a smile. Is there anything to celebrate? Mrs. Lin said, what is there to celebrate? Can't I treat you to dinner, Sister Lin? Look, you didn't even tell me in advance that you were coming back. You see, it's just a simple meal today. There are no dishes. I feel bad, so I want to make you a good meal. That's fine, I'll come over. Taisetsu nodded. In 2 days, it's your birthday. How can I forget? Even if you don't say it, I will come back. Taisetsu glanced at the calendar hanging on the wall. Probably the people from the volunteer team brought it, right? Taisetsu took out the mobile phone and set the alarm. Then, he put the mobile phone on the table and accompanied Mrs. Lin to eat. After dinner, Taisetsu washed the dishes. Then, he prepared the ingredients for dinner and put it aside for Mrs. Lin's convenience. Ganjing, it seems that your phone is ringing, right? Mrs. Lin, who was sitting in the living room, shouted at this time, where did you put your phone? Oh, it's mine, it's mine. Taisetsu quickly walked out. I put it on the table. I didn't notice. Then hurry up and answer it. Hello, it's me. Taisetsu directly turned off the ringtone. While looking at Mrs. Lin, he said casually, now? No, it's fine. Let me check the time. Is 3 o'clock okay? Okay, I'll try my best. Okay, goodbye. Mrs. Lin asked, Ganjing, what happened? Nothing, just a small matter. Mrs. Lin said, I think you seem to be in a hurry. Why don't you go to work first? You don't have to specially stay until 3 o'clock for me. Besides, there will be plenty of opportunities in the future. Next time, I can introduce you to the volunteer team. But this, Mrs. Lin smiled and said, it's good that you have time to come and see me. If you have something to do, go do it first. Don't delay the business. Otherwise, I won't be happy. All right then. Daz nodded. I'll come over for dinner in 2 days. It's a deal. Mrs. Lin, you have to make delicious food for me. Oh, okay. Taisetsu glanced at the time, 1:30. Taisetsu quietly walked out of the community, but he didn't go far. Instead, he hid at the side. When it was 2 o'clock, he saw some young men and women wearing red clothes and hats coming to the community. Only then did he breathe a sigh of relief. It seemed that they were a real volunteer team. Taisetsu smiled bitterly. After today's work and seeing Mrs. Lin, he suddenly didn't know what to do. At this time, the roar of a horn suddenly sounded from the roadside. A Passat slowly stopped, opened the window, and stuck out a head. Brother Je! Brother Je! It was Big Head. Taisetsu frowned, quickly walked in front of Big Head, and said in a deep voice, "Don't shout. Then, let's talk in the car? You little brat." Taisetsu shook his head and got in the car. He looked at Big Head and asked, "What are you doing here?" "I'm looking for you." "What else can I do?" Big Head replied, "After you left, I called you but you didn't answer. I went to the construction site where you worked and asked, but you weren't there. At this time, I guess you definitely didn't sneak back to sister-in-law. Oh, ex-wife's village. Then, it could only be Mrs. Lin's place. Look, I met you. I, Big Head, am still very smart." Taisetsu stared at Big Head at this time and said seriously, "Big Head, I'm warning you. You can't tell anyone about Mrs. Lin. Otherwise I will chop you." "I know. I won't say it even if you beat me to death." Big Head patted his chest and said, "Not to mention that you used the fast money you earned over the years to take care of Mrs. Lin. You bought a house and pretended to be mysterious to get some allowance. You even asked me to send money on time every month. Mother, I'm a little jealous. I haven't seen you treat me like this before. In any case, we're brothers who grew up together, aren't we? I owe her." Taisetsu looked out of the window. Big Head looked at Taisetsu and sighed. "I say, Brother Je, I can't really blame you for what happened in the past. It's been so many years. It should be enough, right?" "Enough. Don't say it. I'll deal with my own matters." Taisetsu knocked on the glass window of the car. His eyes were a little fierce. Big Head was a little scared and directly pursed his lip. "Why are you still looking for me?" Taisetsu frowned at this time. "Why? Your boss still doesn't give up? I thought what I said went in one ear and out the other." "I also want to ask you," Big Head quickly said, "Brother Je, what did you say to President Xiao? I saw his face was so dark." "Right, let me tell you. I don't know what President Xiao did. He suddenly let his wife take his child out for a trip." "When did this happen?" "After leaving Hongfu Building in the morning," Big Head said. "He originally wanted me to buy a plane ticket for him, I guess. But he was afraid that I would let you know, so he stopped." "Hey, you really think I'm stupid?" "Mother, I slept with his nanny. I know everything, hee. However, Brother Je, didn't I remind you before going to Hongfu Building? Why are you still so reckless when you see President Xiao? It makes me angry. Did you use too much strength when you grabbed my collar?" "Xiao Yuqing, this guy is very insidious." Taisetsu frowned at this time. He let his wife and child go out. "I guess he wants to deal with me these 2 days. Big Head, send me to Luo Ting's village and put me down. I'm a little worried. Then, you have to help me pay attention to Xiao Yuqing's actions." "This, Brother Je, are you really going against President Xiao?" Big Head asked in horror. Drive. Chapter 626. When Boss Luo came back with a basket full of osmanthus flowers, a group of people came to the living room. They were all older people. In Luo Chio's impression, he could call out some names, but some were very vague. These people were discussing something, and Uncle Luo Shan was also holding the phone and talking to someone at this moment. Luo Shan was not here. She was in Grandma Xiaochun's room at this time. The door was closed. These people probably saw Luochio, but no one greeted him first. Uncle Luo Shan covered the phone at this moment and said, "Oh, this is Luochio." Then, Luo Shan continued to talk on the phone. These relatives nodded at Luochio, then whispered to each other or frowned in contemplation. Luochio remembered Grandma Xiaochun's words. After putting away the basket, he silently sent tea to these seniors in the genealogy. With a smile and hot tea, they wouldn't be indifferent. "Oh, thank you. I didn't expect Brother Chi's child to be so old. I haven't seen you for a long time. Next time, come to my house and do it." Yes, it was just a matter of initiative. Whether it was sincere or not, Luocio only cared about it because it was the old woman's expectation. If there is a chance, Luocio responded. At this time, an older man suddenly said, Luo Shan, since Mom can wake up now, why don't you ask her clearly what she means? Otherwise, we will quarrel in the future and hurt our relationship. Another man sitting opposite frowned and said, Look at the situation now. Can you stop for a while? Do you have to do this for this small piece of land? You can't say that. There is a big development now. We can't guarantee that it will be developed tomorrow. He emphasized, Oh, can you guarantee that you won't jump out at that time? That's right. The older woman sitting next to him also chimed in, Our daughter-in-law works in the government. I heard that next year. But before she could finish her words, she was interrupted. Her man quietly stepped on her toes. Wait, second sister-in-law, did you really hear the news? No, it's just hearsay. Only then did the woman say, I don't know either. Is it true or not? Besides, who could accurately predict the policy? I was just thinking that in case something like this happens I should be prepared. All right, let's not talk about it anymore. Wait for Luo Shan to come out and ask about the situation. Luo Shan's eyes widened. I've contacted the hospital. They can send an ambulance over. I think it must be the final radiance of the setting sun, the woman muttered at this time. It's more like he's preparing for his funeral. Shut up. Several pairs of eyes glared at her, and the woman shrank back. Luocio ignored him and returned to the kitchen early. What are you looking for? Luo Shan's voice suddenly came from behind Luocio. Flour. Luocio turned around. Grandma Xiaochun said that she wants to make reunion balls, so I want to prepare them first to save her some effort. Luo Shan was taken aback. Her eyebrows were wrinkled with doubts. She looked at the relative in front of her who was of the same generation but had never been in contact with her. She asked, You don't seem to be in a hurry at all? Luocio said softly, No matter how anxious I am, there are still some things that need to be done. We can't just let things stop. Rationalist? Luo Shan glanced at Luocio indifferently, shook her head and said, Anyway, I won't agree with you letting my grandmother do whatever she wants, whether it's as a doctor or as her granddaughter. I hope you can understand the severity of the matter. Indeed, I didn't take your emotions into consideration. Luocio nodded. I'm sorry. Luo Shan felt as if she was punching the air with all her strength. A kind of discomfort made her unwilling to continue talking to this relative. She reached out and pointed to a cabinet. The flour is inside. Grandma said that she wants to see you alone. I'll go over now. Watching Luocio leave from her side, Luo Shan sighed subconsciously. She suddenly felt like she had lost. It had nothing to do with identity, seniority, work background, and education level. It was not even a matter of the ways of the world. It was something else that had been missing in her. Why do I feel like I'm being unreasonable? Luo Shan muttered, then shook her head. She quickly left the kitchen and walked into the living room. After coming out of Grandma Xiaochun's room, this was the first place she came to. What made her upset was that Grandma actually wanted to see such a distant relative, but not her children. Can you stop arguing about those things that don't exist? Luo Shan's dissatisfied voice sounded in the living room. I was in the room just now, and I could hear what you were arguing about. Grandma asked me to bring you a message. She is still here. She was such a strong woman. Her sharp gaze was not only able to suppress his parents, but also the other elders. Shanshan, what's the situation with your grandmother? Luo Shan was still nervous. Luo Shan shook her head. There's not much time left. You won't understand the specific situation even if I tell you. If you can understand, it's the final radiance of the setting sun. With that said, Luo Shan suddenly glanced at the woman who was sitting with her neck shrunk. Then, she sighed, Grandma said that everyone should have a meal tonight. Then, whatever she wants to do, just let her be. Don't ask and don't talk too much. Just do as usual. Luo Shan nodded and then made a phone call. Tingding, ask Chen Hai to come over tonight. Let's have a meal together. Seeing this, the others also made phone calls silently. Luo Jing looked at everyone. Dad, I'll drive to town to buy some groceries. Buy more. Really? You picked so many osmanthus flowers? Grandma Xiaochun looked at Luoqiu happily. Her face was getting better and better. You're such a good child. It's been hard on you. She did not talk about anything. It was as if the quarrel outside the living room had never happened. Because I also want to eat the reunion dumplings made by Grandma. Really? Grandma Xiaochun grabbed Luoqiu's hand and said, By the way, can he come tonight? Luoqiu closed his eyes. After a while, he whispered, Grandma, you know that he can't appear in front of everyone. But I always feel that he is by my side. Grandma Xiaochun sighed softly and said, Recently, when I was in a daze, I always felt that someone told me that he was there. And I feel that my body seems to be getting lighter and lighter. By the way, there seems to be a child. He was wet all over. He kept walking while crying. He was so pitiful. Let's make a reunion dumplings. Luoqiu stood up and said. Grandma Xiaochun was stunned. Then, she cheered up and said with a smile, Okay, I'll let you see Grandma's cooking. Usually, if Taisetsu did not speak, Big Head would not have the strength to speak. It was just that the atmosphere in the car was too silent. By the way, Brother Zhe, have you heard? Along died inside. Big Head said abruptly, I heard that he died of illness. Whether it is true or not, it's hard to say. AI, in short, another person I know has passed away. Taisetsu was startled and looked at Big Head silently. After a while, his eyes were scattered on the road outside the window. He murmured, Is it? Even Ah Long is gone. Then, I'm the only one left. Brother Zhe, what did you say? Big Head did not hear clearly. Taisetsu shook his head, Nothing. Can you drive faster? Why is your new car so slow? When will we reach the village? Big Head said helplessly, Brother Zhe, you don't know. Now the road is equipped with electronic eyes. It's not like before. When we enter the village road, I will speed up immediately. AI. Times have changed. As Big Head spoke, he turned on the car's stereo. Old songs. Wanchai has always been big. I play with the sun. Hong Xing is in charge of the area. Bolu Chicken Do and Dejia are all watching the sun. Tua Di Supreme Realm. In terms of background, the most powerful. In terms of friends, I won't admit defeat. Saber Light and Sword Shadow, let me break into the club to show my skills. With one heart, I won't be shocked even if I die. Let my blood flow, Saber Light and Sword Shadow. Chapter 6:27. Wait. Turn this way. Shortly after the Passat entered the village road, Taisetsu asked Big Head to turn in another direction, not the road to his ex-wife's village. Big Head was stunned. Brother Zhe, why are you still going there at this time? Aren't you worried about your sister-in-law, your ex-wife? Taisetsu shook his head and said indifferently, Do you think Xiao Yuqing is really a god? Do you think he dares to mess around in broad daylight? Don't worry. Tingting's old man is dying. Relatives are gathering there. Nothing will happen during the day. That's fine. It didn't take long for Big Head's Passat to stop next to a reservoir surrounded by mountains. Big Head didn't get out of the car. Taisetsu asked him to wait in the car. Taisetsu took the things he bought from the village snack shop and went down the path to the edge of the reservoir. This reservoir was built a long time ago. How deep was the water? Probably no one was willing to try. But every year, people from nearby villages came to this place to swim privately and drowned. The government put a cordon around the reservoir, but it still couldn't stop the bold people. Taisetsu finally stepped over the cordon wire and came to an indented sand next to the reservoir. He squatted down at the edge of the water and silently took out the things he bought in the plastic bag. A few small bread. Taisetsu stacked these up and took out a bundle of incense from the bag. He pulled out a few sticks and closed his eyes to pray a few times. Then he inserted them. It's not a good thing, but I'll eat it. It's better than the cold fish below. Daz sat cross-legged next to him and smoked by himself, but his ears were buzzing. Brother Je, I have no way. I really have no way. If I can't raise enough money, Sang Kuan will kill me. He will really kill me. How many times have I told you? Don't go to Sang Kuan's stall to gamble. Are you crazy? Don't you know what kind of place it is? It's a place that eats people without spitting out the bones. How would I know? The dealer told me that I can get the money from the stall and split it equally with us. Brother Je, my wife is about to give birth, and my dad is in the hospital. I planned to gamble. I didn't expect them to cooperate to cheat me. Stop talking. I don't want you to listen to these things. Let me ask you. You kidnapped other people's child, do you feel guilty? You also said that your wife is about to give birth, and you are about to be a father. Your child is your child, a child, and others' child is not a child? And you guys, these guys, you helped him kidnap child's abduct? If I hadn't asked along, were you planning to keep it a secret from me and pretend that nothing happened? Do you still think I exist? We can't help it, she's. Little Tiger owes us too much. Even if we want to, we can't. Yeah. If it weren't for Sang Kuan forcing us to do this, we wouldn't do it either. You don't know. Sang Kuan brought people to Xiao Hu's house a few days ago and made a scene. He said that if he didn't pay back the money, he would have no son. Xiao Hu's wife was so scared that she almost had a miscarriage. Where is she now? In the hospital. The fetus is temporarily saved, but she doesn't want to see me now. You deserve it. Brother Je, what about this matter? Don't even think about it. You have to send this child back. I will think of a way to deal with Sang Kuan. I will talk to him tonight. Brother Je, why don't you not go? You said that you won't care about this matter and will wash your hands. Sister-in-law is such a good person. You will be involved in this muddy water. Besides, this child's father, Lin Qinggong, is a businessman. He opened a clothing factory and has a lot of money. He won't make it public if we ask for 500,000 yuan. We will be fine as long as we are careful. No. I said no, that means no. You send the child back immediately and go find Sang Kuan now. Do you hear me? Yes, yes. Suddenly, there was a stab of pain. Taisetsu quivered. The cigarette but had unknowingly burned to his finger. The burning pain made him shrink back instinctively. Taisetsu sighed. He didn't know when the sky became gloomy, as if it was going to rain. Just as he was about to leave, the calm water surface in front of him suddenly shook. Circles of water ripples spread from different places, intertwining, canceling, intertwining, canceling. The water began to agitate, faster and more intense. There was a sharp child's laughter all around. It came in bursts, 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 front, back, left, right, all directions, sometimes far, sometimes near. As if something passed by behind him, Taisetsu suddenly looked back, only to see a small figure flash by. Then it was on his left, on his right, and back again. Daz couldn't see clearly all the time. He could only see this small back that flashed by. Gurgle, gurgle. The sound of the water in the reservoir became louder and louder. Taisetsu's whole body was cold, and his heart was beating fast. He looked at the water surface again. He saw that from the dark green reservoir water, a stream of water slowly emerged. Elongated, changed shape and became clear. A small water figure was floating on the water surface. Round eyes, round mouth, quiet, quiet. Taisetsu subconsciously took a step back. Instinctively, he took a step back. The terrifying little person in front of him suddenly waved its hands. The dark green water around it seemed to have a life of its own, turning into thousands of arms, layer by layer, covering the sky. These arms grabbed Taisetsu's arms, legs, body, neck. His whole body was submerged in these water arms. In an instant, he couldn't breathe in these water arms. A large amount of cold liquid poured into his nose, mouth, eyes, all the pores on his body. Little by little, he was dragged into the water by these horrifying arms. Taisetsu grabbed his neck with both hands, gasping for fresh air, and knelt on the wet sand ground. The burning incense next to him was almost burned to the bottom, but the reservoir in front of him was still calm. He was still sitting in the same place, and didn't move at all. Taisetsu took a deep breath, as if he was used to this horrible experience, stood up silently and left silently. When Daz climbed over the cordon and climbed onto the road, Big Head was unbuttoning his pants to urinate under the tree next to him. Big Head heard the movement and turned his head. "Brother Je, I have just woken up, you took so long. You don't look so good?" Big Head. Taisetsu suddenly looked at Big Head with a serious look. "What?" Taisetsu was silent for a while, shook his head and said, "Don't go to the reservoir to play with water." Big Head was taken aback. "Am I crazy? If I want to play with water, why don't I go to the pool? There are so many women. Let's drive. It's not dark yet. It's time to eat." Grandma Xiaochun walked out with a smile on her face, holding a bowl of taro braised pork. There were 2 tables in the living room, and then newspapers were placed on the coffee table. A temporary table was put together. There were a total of 3 tables, all of which were already full. The young among the old forced a smile. Yen PS1. Many people are asking which hole has not been filled, how many holes have been filled, why the little butterfly doesn't come out, and so on. Then I will explain the timeline. PS2. First of all, Boss Luo became the boss around March or April, then after the summer vacation, and then the Golden Week. The online gaming incident after the Golden Week was less than a month. At present, the old timeline is probably between November and December. So, the little butterfly hid underground to evolve for 3 or 4 months. Chapter 628. On the village road, the door of Grandma Xiaochun's house was open, and the light shone out. After sunset, there was still a glimmer of light in the sky. An old man walked slowly with a basket on his back. He lived in the row of old houses. The old man looked curiously at the open door and saw the people in the room. He also saw Grandma Xiaochun with a rosy face. He was stunned. Most old people knew their destiny. The closer they got to the other side, the clearer it was. "Old Nyo, you came back from fishing?" Grandma Xiaochun walked to the door and smiled at the old man with a basket on his back. "Ah, Aunt Chun, why are you?" Old Nyo seemed to realize something. Grandma Xiaochun smiled and said, "Come in and have a meal. You live alone, so you don't have to go back and cook by yourself. Come, come." Looking at Grandma Xiaochun, old Nyo nodded silently. He stepped over the threshold and saw the people in the living room. Was she sad? Old Nyo was also sad. As he got older, everyone he knew, laughed with, quarreled with, went to the field, and made rice cakes together would leave. Maybe he would be the next one. So old Nyo looked at Xiaochun's children and grandchildren, whose smiles were ugly even if they squeezed out. Then, this old man will have a meal? Come, Luo Shan, Luo Ming, bring some white wine over. Uncle Nyo, sit down. Luo Shan quickly made room for old Nyo to sit down. Grandma Xiaochun had already taken out a bottle of wine from the cabinet in the living room. She smiled and said, "Old Nyo, drink more. I am still waiting for you to sing a play." After drinking a few times, old Nyo picked up a peanut and put it in his mouth to chew. He squinted his eyes and pondered. After a while, old Nyo sang a Qinhuai folk tune that had been passed down. The children did not understand and were not interested. They clamored to watch TV. The older ones did not dare to make a sound, but they also felt depressed. Luo Shan's eyes turned red as he listened because his wife's eyes turned red first. Luo Shan's eldest brother, who was also Grandma Xiaochun's eldest son, held a small wine glass and a bottle of white wine. He remembered that when he was very young, an opera troupe came to the village. Most of them were like this, immersed in the memories of the past. Only Grandma Xiaochun was holding her youngest granddaughter, who was only 2 years old. She gently patted the child's back and put her face on the little granddaughter's red face from time to time. After all, he was the youngest child and had fallen asleep a long time ago. Grandma Xiaochun squinted her eyes and smiled, as if she was saying that this child was very obedient. I need to take a call. Luo San suddenly picked up the phone and whispered to her mother. She then stood up and walked away while pointing at the phone in her hand. However, the moment she stepped out of the door, she couldn't help but cover her mouth. She ran out of the yard and squatted there alone. But she realized that she could not do this, so she quickly wiped her eyes and stood up. Only then did she see that someone was already sitting on the low wall by the side of the field. When Luo San finally realized that Luoqiu had disappeared from everyone's sight not long after they started eating. At the same time, no one seemed to have noticed it. "What are you doing here?" Luo San approached and said in a nasal voice. Luoqiu glanced at Luo San, took out a pack of tissues from his clothes, and gave it to her. Luo San felt awkward for a while, knowing that the scene just now was probably seen. "I should wipe my eyes. I can't go back like this." Thinking about it, she took the tissue. Luoqiu suddenly looked at Luo San and said, "I am taking a picture." Only then did Luo San notice that there was an antique camera with a golden casing in Luoqiu's arms. Luoqiu walked down at this moment. "Do you want to take a look?" In front of the camera, the faded yellow image was facing the door of the house. Luo San did not know much about cameras, but she felt that this camera would not be an entry-level thing. Can I take a picture?" "Of course. How do I use it?" Boss Luo smiled and guided Luo San on how to use it. Luo San approached the door and quietly took in the entire living room. Unknowingly, she felt a chill slide down her face. You turn around." Luoqiu nodded. When he turned around, he felt a slight pressure on his shoulder. It was Luo San who was using his palm as a pillow. "My parents have always been working outside. My grandmother watched me grow up since I was a child. Do you want Grandma Xiaochun to accompany you all the time? Who doesn't want their loved ones to accompany them all the time?" Luo San sobbed softly and asked, "But life and death are unpredictable. What can we do about it? I have seen many family members of patients in the hospital. In the face of this situation, they are even more helpless. When we have no way to save a person, we can only let nature take them away completely. In the face of death, we are the most powerless people." "A doctor's rationality," Luoqiu said softly. "Fortunately, there is a dream." The boss thought silently in his heart. "What do you mean? Are you saying that I am cold-blooded?" "No." Luoqiu shook his head. "I just feel that it is good that Grandma Xiaochun can have a descendant like you." "What is good about it?" Luo San said faintly. "What can be good about it?" "This village," Luoqiu said calmly. "Besides Luo Jing, you are the only young one I see. Although I met others today, you were also called back. You work in the town's hospital. The road is long and difficult, isn't it?" "I don't know what you are talking about," Luoqiu said softly. "During the day, I feel that this row of new houses on the opposite side of the village road looks very prosperous. But at night, you see, there are not many lights on. It is not much different from the old houses here. Of course, these new houses are all under the policy. Because of subsidies, every family started to build them." Luo San wiped her eyes with a crumpled tissue and looked ahead. "Those who can afford it have moved to the town long ago. Those who can't afford it or have the ability to make a living are mostly working outside. They can't come back many times a year. The rest are like Uncle Luo San, who still insists on farming, but there are not many. So, isn't it normal for it to be empty?" "Then why did you stay in this town? I heard Luo Jing mention some things. He said that you quit a good hospital to come to the town's hospital." Luo San felt a little cold. She hugged her hands and shook her head. "A doctor can be anywhere. The job is the same. But here, it is too deserted." On the other side of the village road, Only 2 or 3 lights were on in 3 houses. There were very few people. Only the sound of the television could be vaguely heard. Children occasionally laughed or cried. It was indeed deserted. Isn't it ridiculous? Luo Shan sighed and raised her head to look at the completely dark night. Not all of them have children and grandchildren, but they still have close relatives. They should be enjoying their old age in peace, but they can't see each other many times a year. I don't know if this kind of development is good or bad. It's almost time. Can you come and help? Luochio asked suddenly. It was Luochio's old house. The location was the kitchen. Steam was rising from the big iron pot on the stove. The room was full of a fragrant and sweet smell. The fire under the stove was bright red and orange. It was not strong, but it lasted for a long time. What is this? Luo-san frowned. Luochio opened the lid of the pot and stirred gently in the iron pot with a big spoon. The osmanthus syrup has been boiled. And do you see those bottles outside? Help to put them in. Why is it here with you? Luo-san looked at Luochio subconsciously. Luochio said, Grandma Xiaochun still has to cook. There are so many people. Naturally, there are not enough seats. So, I simply boiled it here. But it's not so fast, right? And I used a bit of a special method. Luochio said casually, and then scooped out some syrup with a spoon. Taste it. It should be the same. Luo-san subconsciously dipped a little with her finger, and then put it into her lip. Grandma Xiaochun said that this is left for you. Luochio said softly, this is the only taste that she can leave for you that can be preserved for a long time. So that's why you pick so much? Luo-san looked at Luochio. Her gaze had completely softened, and her voice trembled. Luochio did not answer. He asked with a smile, Sister Luo-san, don't you want to help to pack this osmanthus syrup? Luo-san suddenly understood that she was missing something. Is this the bottle with the most? The two walked out with a bottle of osmanthus syrup. Luo-san stared at the basket in Luochio's hand at this time and suddenly asked. Luochio said with a smile, Didn't you compare them? Luo-san snorted and said, I always feel that the bottle on your side has more. Let's exchange. This is mine. I want the biggest one. In front of the door, Grandma Xiaochun was leaning against the door. When she saw the two walking back with the basket, she smiled knowingly. Chapter 6:29. When it was late at night, it was hard to tell whether it was the late autumn wind or the early winter wind. Grandma Xiaochun said that she was sleepy and wanted to go back to her room to rest. A slight cry began to come from the house. Grandma Xiaochun called her sons and daughters to her and began to instruct them on some things. It was all about the distribution of some inheritance. However, after each of them had a bottle of osmanthus syrup in their hands, these children felt that these things didn't seem to matter at this time. At least, at this moment. No one knew whether there would be a fight in the future. In a very quiet environment, Grandma Xiaochun finally closed her eyes slowly. Luo Shan resisted the sadness in her heart and stayed by Grandma Xiaochun's side. She listened to her heartbeat and held her pulse. Luo Shan told everyone that she was just a little bit alive. She really couldn't make it. She said that this was her dying moment, so no one dared to leave. There were also people waiting in other places. In the small courtyard outside the house, under the osmanthus trees, Luochio stopped at this place. Little fluorescent spots of light drifted in the courtyard, reflecting the soil and leaves, as well as the golden osmanthus flowers. Child, when you go back, cut a small section from here and take it back. After this branch is cut off, it can grow back. This one? Luochio nodded, okay. He looked at Grandma Xiaochun, whose figure was hazy and seemed to be dissipating. This was her soul. Nowadays, souls would gradually dissipate under no special circumstances, unless there were some thoughts that were difficult to part with. Do you have to bring this thing? Grandma Xiaochun walked in front of Luochio and looked at the mask on his face curiously. Luochio whispered, I think this will be more suitable. Grandma Xiaochun shook her head, stretched out her hand, and took it off for Luochio. It's not necessary. You are you. At least I can feel that you are still you. That's why I'd rather be sent off by someone who can call me Grandma instead of a cold mask like this. Then, I won't bring it this time. Luochio nodded. Grandma Xiaochun held Luochio's arm and walked in the yard. I still don't know what happened to you. Maybe you can tell me, but I won't understand. But do you always bring it with you when you work? Yes, considering some circumstances. For example, to avoid certain things. Boss Luo nodded. Grandma Xiaochun stopped, looked up, and smiled without saying anything. Luochio heaved a sigh of relief and said, I hope that I can distinguish between them. But it can't be done. Luochio said calmly, indeed. Actually, it has been some time now. Sometimes. I can't tell if it's me when I'm wearing it or when I'm taking it off. Sometimes it's just a habit. I don't study much and am uneducated. I don't understand, Grandma Xiaochun said with a smile. Luochio was startled. Grandma Xiaochun continued, but I remember that your father often said that if you don't understand something, just run into it. Whether you can break it or not, you can understand it. I believe that you can understand it too. He didn't say run into it later. He said that if you don't understand, it doesn't matter if you use your fists, Luochio recalled. Really? Grandma Xiaochun was amused. It does sound like Luo Qi's words. Luochio, if you don't understand, just run into it. If you still don't understand, it doesn't matter if you use your fists. Grandma supports you, okay? Grandma Xiaochun clenched her fists and made an encouraging look. She was obviously so old and about to leave. Okay. Luochio nodded slowly. Then, send me here, Grandma Xiaochun said softly. Did he come to pick me up? Luochio looked around at the little fireflies. He has always been waiting for you. Under an osmanthus tree, the little fireflies gathered and turned into a voice. He stood here silently. His eyes were empty and lifeless, but he just stood here silently. He was also an old man. This was Grandma Xiaochun's husband, who had passed away many years before her. This soul was reluctant, so he was willing to be bound by this land and turned into a wandering soul. His memory faded with the years, leaving only longing. For many years, he had been wandering in the house. The rain and wind had not changed. Grandma Xiaochun actually knew that her husband was already there, especially after he was seriously ill. She could feel it more and more. So, she wanted to come back to this house. She knew that he was waiting for her. Old man, you have waited for a long time. Grandma Xiaochun let go of Luochio and walked step by step to the person under the tree. She took his hand and held it tightly. Son, daughter, little grandson, all of you are doing well. I can go with you now, old man. Grandma Xiaochun snuggled up to her husband. The traces of those years on them faded away little by little, and finally remained in the most beautiful moment. She was still very young. She had braids, small dimples, and a green dress and cloth shoes. He was also very young. He wore a hat with a 5-pointed star and a Chinese tunic suit. He was full of vigor. The two of them became friends at that time and were engaged for 100 years. Then, they talked about who would die at 97 years old and who would wait for 3 years on the bridge of helplessness. He had been waiting for her. Luochio, Xiaochun called softly. I'm here, Luochio responded softly. Xiaochun said, although you have no real relationship with our family in terms of blood, it is good to meet a grandson like you. Blood relation? Luochio was stunned subconsciously and frowned. Xiaochun was surprised for a moment, then shook her head and said, Didn't Luo Qi tell you that he was adopted by your grandfather? But don't worry. You are your father's biological son. This should not be wrong. Looking at Luochio's silent appearance, Xiaochun smiled slightly and said, Do you feel that you have wronged me? No. Luochio shook his head. How can it be? Xiaochun and him looked at each other. He reached out and touched her braids, and she reached out and touched his eyebrows. Her figure dispersed in an instant and completely turned into little fluorescent light. The fluorescent lights intertwined with each other, and it was impossible to distinguish which was which. They hovered and then rose into the night sky. They flickered and shone brightly, and finally dissipated among the distant stars. The courtyard was quiet again, and the fragrance of osmanthus flowers was everywhere. The swaying branches emitted a faint light. It was the last firefly that was intercepted by the leaves of the osmanthus tree. Then it was picked up by Luocio. He accepted this yearning as a reward. Luo San staggered into the courtyard, covering her mouth. She was no different from when she ran out of the garden after dinner. She saw that Luocio was also here, looking up at the starry sky. She did not know what he was thinking. "Grandma, she is gone." "I know. What are you looking at?" "Cowherd," Luocio whispered, "and Vega." Luo San subconsciously looked up, but she saw nothing. They only meet on Chinese Valentine's Day? It's probably a lie. Luocio smiled and said, "If the people who love can only meet once a year, it's too pitiful. The guy who made this legend, I think he should be up to no good. It's not funny at all." Luo San looked at Luocio with a smile that was uglier than crying, and asked softly, "Grandma will meet my grandfather, right?" "Of course." Luocio. What's the matter?"